Hey everybody, this is about to be the unabridged story of Boston. You're going to hear a lot of stuff that's already been talked about on
A lot of curse words.
a lot of curse words, a lot of
If
stuff.
any audience members are under the age of 18, parental discretion is strongly advised.
You're going to hear a lot of stuff that we've talked about in the 2 weeks review if you happen to listen to that.
If not, because you're a cheap bastard.
Yeah, well, you'll
It's
hear the
here.
rest. Or if you just never got around to it. It's also in bits and pieces because obviously we never had the full story until now. But if you can't tell, we're about to move out. A lot of people are probably going to comment things like, I didn't know you were in Boston.
I didn't know you were Oh, yeah.
I live right next to you.
I see my house in the background. It's a fucking box.
Yeah. But yeah, this is going to be the full story of what the hell happened here. Why did we come here? What went wrong? Why are we leaving? Just every step of the journey of what's going on. And to really begin, we have to begin with the start of our relationship, really. To get a full picture of this. To explain why we even were moving to a city like this in the first place. Because when back in 2 years ago, almost probably to the day when we were talking on Snapchat, I was planning to move out of my house that I had lived with my parents for a long time, and if you didn't see the vlogs from this era, my parents had moved out of the family home and gotten their own place, and I had moved in Ben Saint and the DeVue. Both of them members of the Procrastinators podcast. I'm going real far with this explanation in case anybody there's any detail that some people don't know. But I do a podcast with 9 other people. 2 of them moved in with me. One of them, the DeVue, was my editor. He still is my editor for now. He's kind of weaning off of being my editor and getting other jobs. So, but that's a story for another time.
Is it?
I guess so.
Okay.
Well, because I don't know how long he's going to be working for me for, if he's going to keep working just
we don't know.
in smaller amounts.
I mean,
no idea.
Obviously
I don't want to say anything about him and his life because I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But, so DeVue and Ben had moved in with me, and that was going for a little while, but part of our ambition was eventually to move everybody else in this podcast down to one area and work on projects together in person in a style like Red Letter Media. That's been a goal of ours for 4 or 5 years. It's been going on that we've been talking about this. So
I'm sure it was also a goal of theirs for a decade.
Well, with Ben and DeVue, I mean, in DeVue's case, this was him moving out of the house for the first time, and he was primarily my editor, more so than even being involved in PCP. And Ben is sort of tangentially involved, but he's really a comic artist first and foremost, who isn't that involved with YouTube. The main, in my head at least, it's always been that when me and Nate, aka Best Guy Ever, moved into the same town, that would be the foundation of PCPHQ, because the 2 of us are the only ones who are completely serious about being professional YouTubers, specifically. Everyone else in the group is sort of here and there on YouTube. They're not necessarily primarily YouTube creators. They don't necessarily care about, making as much money as possible and, trying to make some kind of big YouTube art piece. It's mostly me and Nate. So in my mind, it's basically everybody else is opt in as they see fit. You know, Ben, for instance, I wouldn't consider to be a core member of whatever this was going to be because he's more concerned with doing comics, more concerned with running Endless War. He would be somebody who would, hey, Ben, do you want to be in a video? Sure, he'll come over sometimes, you know. But, if me and Nate were there, it's going to be, rigid, 3 times a week we meet up at a studio, film something, and put it out. And, with a full-time editor around the clock. A full-blown YouTubing career. So, we wanted this to happen down in Virginia Beach, but it wasn't really the best place for anybody. And I, in particular, was very lonely. I wasn't meeting anybody in this town, it's a military town. Most of the people there are military. I mean,
you're in your mid-20s. It makes sense that you want to travel.
Yeah.
And it makes
I'm
sense
an indoor guy. I didn't really go out to the
yeah.
beach or anything, which is just a tourist trap anyway. Like, there's just not much to do if you're a single guy in Virginia Beach. It's not a good place to be single, you know? Great place to be in a relationship, which is why we're moving back there, as we'll get to. But, so at the time I was single and, like, I was kind of sad. Ben ended up moving to Atlanta to be with his girlfriend of the time. That didn't work out. If you haven't heard any of that story, that's other places. It's not important to this. Devu ended up going back because basically we all just kind of were like, okay, this isn't working out. Let's split up and maybe we'll reconvene somewhere else later. Is sort of the idea. Like, and Nate wasn't even close to ready to leaving his job anyways. So like PCPHQ is not going to be a thing for a while regardless. So we're like, let's all go our separate ways. So Devu flies back out home. Ben goes to Atlanta. And I, at the time, was planning to possibly get an RV and live in an RV and just travel to different cities every month or so. Because, like, in my mind, it was like, well, if I don't like Virginia Beach, I don't know where I will like. I don't know what city is going to be good to live in for someone like me. I don't know where I will benefit the most from. And I could do my job from anywhere. I have no real reason to stay in any one place. You know, I'm not that much of a family person. I had already not talked to most of my friends for a year, so I was just like, fuck it, I'll go wherever. So I decided to take this trip around the country and visit a bunch of friends in other cities and see if any of those cities were cool and if I wanted to go there. But the first place, since I was doing this anyways, and you and I had been talking for a while, and basically you had offered that you were going to come down and see me that summer.
Yeah, during break from college.
Right.
I was, I'd come down and see you.
Yeah, and
test the waters before.
Right, well, because I was in the mindset of, like, I
date.
really didn't want an internet relationship, because I'd had one of those before. It didn't work out that well. I didn't want to be in Skype calls 12 hours a day, or whatever, the Zoomers do when they date online. So I was like, cool, if you're coming down this summer, like, let's not try to pursue a relationship until then, and then we can find out once we meet in person. But, since I'm traveling around the country anyways, I might as well come to you. So I make a trip up to Rochester, New York.
Yes, because you didn't plan any of your trips, like, you let them know that, oh, you're probably gonna be part of the trip. But I got no dates.
Well, because I didn't have dates until, like, because, like, up until, like, a week beforehand, I thought I was going to do this RV plan.
Yeah.
And, like, the problem with RVs is that they depreciate in value the second you buy them. And if you want one that's not shit, they're very expensive. I had a lot of money to throw around and make a down payment, and I was really considering it, but the biggest problem, there are two things that prevented me. One, it's very difficult to get consistent internet connection to an RV, which is a huge deal for me, for my job, and B, you have to clean out the fucking toilet all the time, and I didn't want it to do that, so...
I can't see you doing that.
No, I don't, and I also don't want to live in a place that your bathroom is right in the center of your living space, so if you take a shit, you're gonna smell it, because it's not going anywhere. It doesn't go into a pipe,
That's why you just gotta shit at Planet Fitness.
Fair enough. So, that would have been a good plan. So yeah, I didn't go through the RV
That's why
plan.
it exists. It's a $10 a month membership for a toilet.
But I had this crazy plan of, because I had been invited to both Anime Expo and Crunchyroll Expo that summer. And so my plan was to drive across the country to LA, get there, do Anime Expo, then drive back to Virginia, and then fly to Crunchyroll Expo right afterwards. And so I was going to go across the upper half of the country on the way there, bottom half on the way back. All of that changed when we met, because I immediately fell in love with you and was like, I'm going to move in with her. Like, if I don't know where I'm going anyways, and if the main reason I'm leaving home is because I'm lonely and want to find a connection, why wouldn't I just move in with you if all places are equal, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So we hatched this plan that we will try to get a place together for like 6
many
months.
plans. We were in bed,
Yes.
not sleep.
Yeah.
And that's how we picked Virginia Beach.
It's always
It's always just.
It's always like a 2 a.m. fucking refrigerator light thought, as they call it. Yeah, so we're like, all right, let's
when
like.
the stars align.
Because I was like, there's no reason for us to have a long distance relationship if I can just live wherever, anyways. And I have to leave that because. So after me and my friends had left the house, my parents moved back into it. And they then, sold the other house that they had at the time. And so, like, with them moving back in, I had been moved out of my original room into, like, the center of the house in unacceptable living condition, basically. And, like, merely having gone on this trip and, like, lived in hotels for a week at a time, lived in places away from home, I had already gotten used to not aside from the fact that they had not been there for a while, like, I had gotten used to not having my parents around, not having to answer to anybody, just being
Christ,
like...
So much has changed in the time that we've been dating. Like, your whole family has migrated.
Everybody's moved. It's been fucking zany. That's why we're telling the story.
Into your house and then moved out of the house.
It's been a wild ride because...
everybody out of the house.
Yeah, because sometimes it gets tangled in my head. Like, I think of it like, oh, we all just left the house. No, my parents had moved back in. My cousin moved in.
Yeah, Shade and Amber.
Shade and Amber had gone into... It's my youngest brother and his girlfriend had moved into my old room. And so I was stuck in this middle of the house room, and, like, I had no desire to live at home again, So I'm like, easy decision. I'm going to move up to Rochester, and the original plan was, because you had to finish college, you were trying to finish your degree, and you thought that you would finish it by the end of fall, so we would just get, like, a temporary, like, 6-month apartment or something, and then we would, from there, move to Atlanta. Because Ben had gone to Atlanta, I visited there, I thought it was pretty cool, there were parts of Atlanta I'd like to live in. It was just a place that seemed cool, and why go...
I've heard about this place. There's a TV show.
Right. Well, why go back to Virginia Beach if it seems boring? And Atlanta seems more...
Ben and Jackie
seems
are there.
more exciting. Ben's there. People will want to move there, right? So that's just kind of our stock choice, is Atlanta. Why not,
When I told people at work, because I, like, put in my, my 2 weeks notice. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm moving to Atlanta. They're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then I was just like later, like, oh, I decided to move to Boston instead.
That's like I have to emphatically remind people, because I understand that moving to most people, especially across states, just probably seems insane. Yeah. But, like, I've moved... before I moved in with you, I'd already moved, like, 18 times in my life. My family moved all the time. We'd moved across states. We fucking just... we lived in a house for 4 years one time, in the golden years of my youth, and then we just suddenly slammed everything in a U-Haul and went to Florida, and fucking then came back, and, like, 3 months later. And, like, I'm used to this just constant moving, constantly... being on the road, and again, my job can be done from anywhere, so it makes no difference for me.
I felt kind of nomadic, because, like, I had moved a couple times as a kid. I'd been used to, like, going off to college, and then when I came home from college, it's like, I don't have a room anymore, so, like, I just kind of stayed with friends most of the time, even though most of my stuff was at my parents', but, like, nothing was tying me down.
You didn't want to be at home.
I wanted to move, like...
Right. And
I wanted to see the world. You
were, like, in a position of, like, I'm in my dad's house just basically finishing... Because you had left university and started community college, and you're just, like, writing it out till the end, but with no real plan for what happens after this. Like, I guess I'll move somewhere.
Still getting my shit together, like... We met, like, the summer
Yeah, and you're like sleeping on your
afterwards.
dad's couch, basically.
Yeah, so I had been like, I
futon.
had like a year
Yeah.
out of university to like, you know, sort things out, and the path I was going in life was just like not satisfying.
So both of us are in a position where like moving out of our house is a great idea. Moving in together seems like a great idea.
Yeah.
But we just need to know where to go.
We can both afford to pay rent. Like, we could find a place.
Right.
And if we were moving to Rochester, it'd be really easy for me to, you know, land a place.
And this is where like the mentalities get weird, because like, again, my main reason for leaving Virginia Beach, at the core of it, is loneliness. It's that I haven't found anybody to be with there, and I want to have somebody who I can, like, you know, just have fun experiences with. So I find you. But Rochester, like, I had to move there because you had to finish school, which you didn't end up doing anyways. But,
well,
like,
I wasn't in a position to leave. Like, I was still, you know...
There was a lot going on.
I was working. I was dependent on that income.
Right.
I had family. I had reasons that I couldn't just leave immediately. I had, like, responsibilities and stuff.
It would have been weird to just jump in a car.
I wasn't ready, because, like, we didn't know each other that well either.
Yeah.
So, like,
it was a good way to have a warming period and everything.
Yeah. Like, if something did go wrong, we were staying at a cheap place, you know.
Yeah.
We could easily go back to where our parents were. They were, like, it's like there were a ton of safety nets under us. Yeah. And I think that's why we kind of, like, lived the way we did, because it's like...
It was great.
Fuck it, nothing can really go that wrong.
Yeah, nothing. There was no opportunity for anything to go that wrong, because we both could move in with our parents if anything fucked up, and
you were having
the place was cheap.
So much fun.
I had a ton of money. I was flipping money around like a fucking sultan, which was going to come back to bite me.
I mean, yeah.
But this whole story is just a tale of what happens if you get too ambitious, because that's what this Boston move was. It was an overly ambitious move that immediately was apparent that it was too ambitious as soon as it happened.
There was no way for us to, like, fix it.
No.
Because we didn't give ourselves enough time to, like, to look at another option.
Yeah. So...
And we didn't want to think about the possibility of, like, you know, not immediately moving into the next place.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. It's like, if all cities are equal, who cares where you go, right? Like, we could go anywhere. But when I came to Rochester, I was like, well, I hate this city because it's freezing fucking cold for most of the year. It snows constantly for like half the year. And
then you moved to Boston.
We'll get there. It snows constantly for half the year, and we lived on like the far side of town where it was difficult to get anywhere.
We lived in Greece. We didn't live in Rochester. And we lived really close to the lake, and like the closest thing to us was a Dunkin' that was like a mile away.
Yeah, we were.
So you couldn't.
We were too far away. You couldn't walk anywhere. You could barely
bike anywhere. There was a bar
anywhere.
like right next to our apartment complex.
It was just like the part of town we lived in was particularly bad, but it was also just like. Why would we stay in Rochester? Because it's a dying old factory town.
I mean, if you get closer to Rochester, like we weren't in Rochester.
Rochester, the city, would have been probably pretty fine, and like I wouldn't hate living there. It wouldn't be my first choice because it still snows for half the year.
If you're closer to the colleges there, like RIT and U of R, there's way more stuff to do.
Down in the town of Henrietta.
Areas. Yeah, Henrietta's where my community college was.
Right. So it's not a terrible city to live in, but it's not nearly the best choice. And like I just had it in my head that like because we can go anywhere, let's go to the best possible city. Why stay in Rochester? Even if it's fun, like even if it's okay, why stay here when we can go to the best possible city?
And we fell in love with Boston when we came up to visit.
Well, that's where this is going. Because, like, initially it was Atlanta. Now, we ended up getting, like, because of the fact, like, so the way my trip went that summer is that I came to see you for a week. Then I went to...
oh, God, we're still this far back.
I went to Fern's house. I went to Nate's house. I went to Jesse's house. And somewhere in the process of this, I decided, fuck crossing the Midwest. I don't want to do that. And I had planned...
Weren't you gonna go visit Monkey and Devou?
I was. Well, the plan was to cut through, to go to Devou's house, and then from there to my uncle's house in Colorado, and then from there to Portland to see Sarah Louise, formerly Blind Skywatcher, and then to, like, go from there to LA, and then to cross, like, through Texas, and yeah, see Monkey in North Carolina, and then come back. But instead, what I did was... I cut off that other leg of the trip, bought plane tickets.
Is Monkey really in North Carolina?
Yeah.
Oh, damn, he's close to us.
Yeah, he wouldn't be that far. Well, I don't know if he's still there.
Expect a box of cockroaches.
But
hand delivered.
So we instead, I got tickets. I bought a flight to Portland, then another one to LA, and then back home, and then just, did Crunchyroll later. But, like, so instead of crossing the country, I instead came back to Rochester and stayed with you for another week. And this is where I found out that you weren't going to be able to finish college in the next 6 months. It was going to have to be a year. And frankly, it's almost impossible to find a place that doesn't make you sign a lease for at least a year. Like, everybody had been telling me that, and I kept being like, surely I can find another option.
You can find your places if you, like, lower the bar.
The thing is, I have this weird expectation for life to be customizable and reasonable.
No. Like, life is designed to fuck you over.
Because
it's like,
I have a clear vision of what would be perfect for me, and it just doesn't exist, or if it does, you can't just find it. You have to stumble into it, You have to, like, happen upon a perfect situation,
yeah,
and even then it's probably not going to last.
For a lease that only lasts so long, you have to, like, be very specific when you're looking, because there's places that'll like rent out to college students for 6 months, or
there seasonal. Might be a summer, or and there's some like places that let you do like a hotel on a monthly basis.
It was like, it was not a time. It was like when was it, like July, right?
Earlier than that, I think. Well, it was like June, right? It would have been June 1st that we moved, or June 17th that we moved in, right?
No, because I spent the 4th of July with my family. We were not moved in by the 4th of July. So I think it was, like, late July.
I know it was, like, the 13th of whatever month it was, or 17th.
Maybe it was, like, July 17th. But, I mean, it was, like, a really weird time to move, and, like, I only had, like, 3 weeks to find a place.
Yeah.
And I found somebody who, like, was able to transfer... On Craigslist, I found somebody who was able to transfer their lease, because, like, it's with a...
And they had already spent, like, they had already had, like, the first month of it, so we didn't stay for a full year.
Yeah, and they paid for the first month for us and the safety deposit fee, so it was, like, a really good deal.
Right, and it was a townhouse, which was, like, size-wise, it was perfect for us at the time.
I made sure the place, like, had enough space for you to have your office, and, like, had other things that would help us.
It was a great price. So we moved in there, and the whole time, like, the mindset is, like, we're here for now so you can tie up your loose ends, finish college, finish up your job. Get to know each other. But eventually, we're moving someplace cooler.
Yeah.
Like, that was always, like, in the cards from the start. Was like, this is temporary. Eventually, we're moving somewhere cooler. And we thought Atlanta for a long time. Well, then, for Christmas, so Munchie of the PCP is dating a girl named Kazi, who lives here in Boston. And so because he has a crazy disposable income for a 17-year-old.
Well, he has no responsibilities. He doesn't have to pay taxes. Yeah. He doesn't have to... I mean, now that he's,
Yeah, now he's
older, he has some more responsibilities. But, like, he was just spending on travel.
He would just travel all the fucking time. And so he was taking,
Which is what if you had that opportunity, do it.
Oh my God, of course. And if your parents actually fucking let you do that, which he's been traveling since he was, like, 12. But,
my parents wouldn't let me have sleepovers until I was, like, 18.
Yeah. Well, so Munchie would come to Boston. I think he'd been a couple times. And Ben and Nate are both from here. So they were going to. It just so happened that Ben and Nate were coming home to Boston to visit for Christmas because they hadn't in a couple of years to see their parents, and Munchie was flying in at the same time to see Kazi. So we were like, let's just jump in on this because it seems like fun. And you apparently love Boston. You had never told me this before, but you're like, Boston's my favorite city.
Boston is like my favorite city to visit. I used to love coming here with my family. I wanted to like do a PR job in Boston.
Right.
And, you know.
And so you're thinking like also that if you still wanted to do that, that opportunity is there.
Yeah,
if you move
and
here.
it's close enough to my family where it's like not that big of a
6-hour
deal.
drive from Rochester. It's not too punishing. And it's a straight shot down one road. And so like we show up in Boston and Munchie takes us out and he's like hard selling us you should move to Boston. He's showing us we're at a hotel that's connected to the Prudential Center, which is a gigantic, beautiful mall. And he's showing us around and like in my head, my understanding of Boston had always been like I pictured like an 1800s village in my head when I thought of Boston. Like I thought like the Boston Tea Party is the state that the city is still in. So when we showed up and it's like a fucking mega huge city, I was like, oh, I had no idea Boston was like this. Like I thought it was just a shithole and like we show up and it's super cool. It's way cooler than Atlanta, you know? Because like when I went to Atlanta, Atlanta's kind of run down, kind of dangerous. Boston's pristine. It's safe. It's a nice place. And, you know, even though it was bitterly cold, over that weekend we saw like some really cool places. Like I love the Prudential Center. The street next to it, I don't remember what it's called. It has like all the shops.
Oh yeah.
We went to Faneuil Hall. All of these places were mega impressive to me. Like I'd never been to places I thought were that cool before. So I'm like, this is the coolest city I've ever seen.
Hang out here all the time.
Right. So we're like, this would be mega fucking cool to live near all this shit and to just like every day go to a different restaurant in the city and like just explore this metropolis brimming with possibility, right? So we're instantly sold. So then in March, I guess, was RadCon 3. And RadCon 3, we decided to have at an Airbnb in Sharon, Massachusetts, which is about 45 minutes south of Boston. Now, when this was being put together, I had not paid much attention to the actual planning of RadCon 3. I was kind of just busy doing my own thing and not really paying attention. So like,
I mean, I feel like you felt burnt out from the first two RadCons.
Well, RadCon 2 had been insanely stressful for me and it had been kind of a nightmare. So like, I didn't want to be the guy in charge of anything because I had been in charge of most of everything that time, and it was a clusterfuck. But also because with RadCon 2, like there was a Kickstarter, but everything was like I was very rigid with like we only asked for exactly what it would cost, you know, like and of course it costs way more than that. And, you know...
You're just covering travel expenses, that's like...
It was a really bad time for Jesse, because just, like, what was going on with him in his life, like, it was just not the right time to do it. And, it all happened very fast, and it was not that organized, and it was at my house, you know? Whereas with RadCon 3, we got an Airbnb, we raised way more money, it was way more organized, Nate and Hippo, and I think Munchie basically took care of most of the prep. But, like, I was under the impression that we were doing it, like, in Boston. But it was really, like, way outside of Boston.
It was in Sharon, right?
In Sharon. And,
which is further away from Boston than we are right now.
Right. And we were hoping, like, our plan was we'll go there and we'll house hunt in between doing stuff at RadCon. This does not quite materialize. And you were, like, looking for places on Craigslist and shit.
I was looking and, like, desperately trying to, like, you know... find places that fit our needs and, like, see if anybody, like, would be able to get us in for a showing. But it's kind of impossible when, like, I didn't have a car while I was there. Yeah. And, like, the area we're looking for is, like,
not where we are
the radius
at all.
Around Boston. Yeah, it's not in Sharon. It's
in
not
Boston, we have no real concept of the scope of the Boston metro area. Like, we don't really know the area well enough to successfully look. And again, because... And once again, because I have this unreasonable expectation that there will be options and that, like, whatever suits your needs must be available somewhere, because what I'm looking for is a standalone house that's, like, $2,000 a month.
And I mean, if where we're both from, those are...
readily available.
You can expect to find lots of places that fit that description.
Yeah.
In the city, out of the city, in whatever kind of area you want,
and
whatever kind of place you want.
It also isn't relative to being... It's not relative to the size of the city. It's specifically Boston. And I didn't know enough about Boston to know that standalone houses not very common in Boston.
No, I've never been to a place where it's all like duplexes and multi-family housing and apartment complexes.
Exactly.
Because that's just the nature of how it is. Like, I knew there were suburbs in Massachusetts. I've been to places like Springfield. I've been to Boston. I know there are places people live that are not in the city because, you know, it's all apartments in the city or things that we obviously can't afford. But that's kind of like the idea we had was we want to be in the city.
Yeah.
So we kind of like had to adjust our perimeters, and we were able to find like some houses that were a little bit more than we
well, here comes more
to spend.
We were just watching a Dick show that was Dick on bad assumptions, and this is also a tale of a lot of bad assumptions, especially from me.
Yeah, being young and dumb and full of cum.
Yeah.
Like,
well, because the last day of RadCon, we had like found 3 houses that seemed to fit our needs, but like nobody had gotten back to us at all. Like, we tried calling places and shit, nobody responded, but we just decided to drive to 3 of these places and just look at them from the outside and see if they would look like they met our needs. And like one of them was like in a place that looked pretty ghetto, and we were like, is this really like the best you could do for this amount of money? That
like
seems
in
crazy.
Jamaica Plains or something?
I don't know where it was. Jamaica Plains is where we eventually looked at the duplex.
Yeah, but I was wondering,
trickery.
it might have been like Rosendale or something.
Rosendale?
It might have been something like that. It was close
familiar.
to Jamaica Plains, but like I remember it being like, you
Well,
can't park anywhere.
The
it
one
was
place
scary.
the one place we liked was close to Jamaica Plains.
Was
because it was... There was like this, there's like this big forest, like, park there, and, like, towards the outskirts of that, there was this one house that looked like it would be perfect. It was a 2-story house. It had a great backyard. It had, like,
attic.
Like an attic room, you know, and, like, we had driven up to it, looked at it from the outside, and we were like, this place would be perfect. I would love to move here. And I just kind of counted on that place being available, because in my experience living in Virginia Beach, houses don't sell that fast.
Yeah.
Like,
but I mean, it's different. It's not a house being sold. It's a rental.
Right. Well, even then, like, when my parents used to move, because, again, we've moved countless times, it was a long process of, like, looking for houses and then finding one, and then, like, we would usually find a place, like, 2 months before we moved into it, you know? And, like, it wasn't, like, a rushed thing. It was like, these houses are on the market for a little while, you know? Like, it takes some time to get somebody into a house.
I've never experienced anything like that. I mean, sometimes you go to a place and it's always very varied. Like, sometimes it's like, oh, we want somebody to move in immediately, and other times it's like, you're looking for somebody to move in 2 months.
Well, what we've gradually learned...
And they never fucking say it online.
What we've learned from more experience is that it's just completely case by case.
It's a fucking clusterfuck.
And there's no
Good
logic.
Luck. Without the internet, you'd be fucked.
Yeah.
I feel like renting houses our parents didn't do.
Well, they would just use a realtor. Like, ordinarily, you would just have a realtor.
Go through a third party,
you would have... Because I don't think most people have it so where they think, like, my lease is up this coming month, so I'm going to start looking for places. It's more like you hire a realtor, like, months ahead of time. You spend all this time scouting until you find the absolute perfect place you want to go, as opposed to, we'll take basically anything, I just want it to be within certain parameters on this date, you know?
I mean, nowadays it's weird for the tenant to have a realtor.
Yeah.
Like, it's... Because, like, everything is online.
Right, in all the same places.
And why would you pay somebody extra to do a job that you could do better because you know what you want and all the information is online.
It definitely seems like this has become a very chaotic market, but like it charges on because people always need houses. So
yeah,
like,
especially because like all the boomers and the Chinese own all the land. They own all the homes, all the properties.
particularly around here.
There's not a lot of people. I mean, that's just if you go to a real estate. Like, if you like, see signs for realtors and stuff, it's always in, like, Chinese characters.
Well, there's a huge Asian population where we are.
It's just, that's another thing that we didn't anticipate at all.
Well, yeah, so we had, we just kind of glanced at these places. I've got my heart set on this one house that I'm just expecting to still be there, right? So...
Oh, gosh, don't look inside that land.
What, is it a living bug?
I have no idea.
I think those are just dead bugs.
I hope you're right. Godspeed.
So, at the, at some point in April, I think, of last year, we came down to Boston and got a hotel for 3 nights. Well, we were in town for 3 days, I think. Thinking that, because we had tried to, like, schedule ahead, like, calling people and saying, like, hey, can we look at this house on Saturday? And they're like, oh, we could show it to you tomorrow.
Yeah, they're like, they always want to schedule the house showing immediately. A lot of the people will be like, come by today. Can you do it today? Can you come by tomorrow? It's never
because that's how fucking fast they turn over these fucking houses.
Oh yeah, and in Boston it's even more competitive.
Houses hit the market and they are sold in like under a week. It's fucking crazy. So like everywhere we're calling is just like, you have to come in today. So we're just like, fuck it, I guess we'll go into town and just wing it. But like, where should we go? Because we're looking at the whole Boston.
It's a huge area.
Like, our only logic was be on the train lines. Because Boston is known for having, well, compared to anywhere else in America, great public transit. And as long as you're on the train lines, God, there's so much fucking faulty logic in here. Because part of it is that Massachusetts had just legalized weed.
Oh my god, no!
And this is a big part of the decision making. Because when we lived in Rochester, I had discovered weed and I was smoking constantly. Very addicted, unable to stop, smoking all day, all night, spending because like $300 a week on weed.
Because we were young and dumb and had a lot of disposable income.
We still are young and dumb and
I mean, I feel like
income, but we've gotten better since this point.
I mean, we learned, I don't know if we've gotten better, we've learned some lessons and we're not drug addicts anymore, but like,
we were definitely...
We were excited for the weed to come to pass.
And like, my thought process was like, being addicted to pot's not a problem if you always have pot. And they're legalizing it.
Yeah, it's a sign. We have to come here.
My mentality is like, Boston has amazing public transit and legal weed.
What
so
did you ask?
We'll move somewhere that's on the train lines. We'll get high and go into the city and fucking hang out, and it'll be mega fun. It was supposed to be legalized in July 1st.
Yes. And they voted on it 2 years prior to that, so it was already like they were already making plans.
July 1st was when
they said that the dispensaries could be open.
It was that technically, July 1st was the day that dispensaries could be opened had they been
and also you could grow your own.
But they didn't start inspecting anywhere until July 1st, and so nothing was open until like September.
The process didn't even begin, so like they couldn't even start growing the weed until the 4th.
Way the fuck. What was it? November? Was it November before we got weed? It was
after November. It was after.
No, we definitely had it in November.
Oh yeah, it was before. It was Thanksgiving because they had it right before Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah.
Because they were like, there was like, oh, you can all the news articles. It's like just in time for Thanksgiving, and it's like, what about all the other fucking holidays you missed? What about my goddamn birthday? Which was like 2 weeks before that.
Fucking nightmare. This is just.
God. And then we waited in line to fucking go get the weed, and we were on TV.
This is an unabridged story. So
my God.
So like
it was still worth it.
The thought process we have is okay. So at this point, I don't remember. I think Ben had already moved back to Boston by this point. Because Ben and Jackie broke up, he came back to live in the house that he had before he moved in with me. And so he's in Boston. Munchie's planning to move to Boston, and he takes trips there all the time. Tom already lives in Boston, and Tom Oliver. For anybody who doesn't know who that is, me and him were the original My Little Pony analysts. He was one of my first friends on the internet. Well, not my first friends on the internet, but my first friends on YouTube, and so I've known him for like 6 years, and we had talked about moving in together even back then to do work together. He's super easy to get along with, very easygoing, very unobtrusive. So I was like, Tom was in a situation where his family was going to start charging him rent to live at his place, and he was like, fuck that, I'll just live out of a car. Because he's living like a hardcore starving artist life, and what he's been doing is he got into...
he is Toru from Fruits Basket.
He got into 3D modeling, and so he's been like trying to build a career in 3D modeling, but the only way he's found to market that is by creating a video game. So now he's become a game developer in turn. The man picks up skills amazingly fast, and he's really good. He just doesn't do anything marketable. So he was like, I'm just going to live out of a car and be a starving artist. And I was like, hey, if I move to Boston, I'm definitely going to get a place that's big enough to fit you in it. So, instead of living in your car, come live at my place.
This whole time, he could have been making furry 3D models.
He's talked about if he ever gets desperate enough, he's just going to start doing porn.
But, when is that? When is that point? He hasn't reached it yet?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Oh, boy.
So we got Tom, Ben, and I also had just started becoming friends with Zen Huxtable, who lives here, so I was like, yeah, Boston. And Nate is like, he would be jazzed to come live here because he's from here, he has friends here,
his fam.
Everybody's here, he's counting on this to happen. So.
His mommy and his daddy.
His daddy. So.
Got him!
So we get this hotel for 3 days in Boston, and we get it in like Dedham, which is just like, we were just looking for a place that I believe I said, quote, smack dab in the middle of the Boston metro area, because then we could just drive to wherever from there, but like, we don't know fucking anything about the area! So we show up at this hotel, nobody who we call is scheduling anything with us. We managed, in the 3 days we were there, we only managed to get 2 showings.
And a third one in like a weird property outside of a cottage. It was kind of like a shed.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a shed that was like $2,000 to live in a month.
So like, we can barely even find, like, standalone houses barely exist in Boston, and particularly at the price point we're looking for. And we're going well above what we had thought, and like, still not being able to fucking find anything. So the first place we go to look at is in Jamaica Plains, and like, it says single family home $24.50 on Craigslist. We get there, and it is clearly a duplex, and the guy tells us $26.50. We go to check the ad, and he has changed it in the time that we were sitting in the driveway before coming in.
Yeah, he was fucking on his phone doing shit.
So, mega shady right off the bat. And then the only other place we managed to look at is this one. And literally it was like on the way out of Boston. Like, we closed out the hotel, we drove to this place, and we were like, hopefully this is the one. But like, the pictures we saw online looked good. And we come here, and we liked the place because it's really big. And I was planning to build sets in several of the rooms. We liked how it had a weird layout, and it was just kind of like, it's a really old, shitty, decrepit house, but like, it had that kind of like DIY energy. Like, we could do anything here, like, we could make this space into something special.
Character too.
It's a fixer-upper, which is not really what you want when you're renting a house.
For how much we were.
For $2,400 a month. But, it was a house that we liked and we found in the place. So we immediately were like, alright, that's going to have to be the one. Because at this point, we're only like a month and a week away from the end of our lease in Rochester. So, like, there's no...
Was it really that much time? I thought it was less than that.
Maybe we did this did we do it at the start of the month and then it was 3 weeks? It was.
I think
It was
that's,
not much time.
I think it was less than a month.
And it was.
I remember it being like,
right. Like we just thought this would be. We thought we'd have more options. We thought it would be easier, but
when
like
you look online, it's like most places say immediate move-in.
Yeah.
So like,
and
okay, wouldn't that be better if we can move in immediately? We can't break our lease.
This is how they fuck you, because everywhere you go, you have to sign a 1-year lease. So that means as soon as you leave one place, you have to go to another place.
Usually in the lease we'll have a rollover, like if you will roll over into the next year.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't say anything, like, you're gonna be fucked for another year.
So we're sitting here like, well, either we get this place, or we're gonna have to go live in your dad's basement for a couple months while we try to find a place.
My sister...
Which might have been a better idea.
My sister and her fiance moved out, so we would have their room. So it was like, you could have Jason's office.
If we had been willing to swallow our pride and tuck our tail and think about it a little longer, it might have been better.
Which we should have done.
Yeah.
But, you know, why would we... That's like...
But we liked this place.
Almost. Yeah, like we
felt
like
when we found it, we were like, alright, fuck it. We fucking did it.
We were able to stumble into this place.
And it was... every step of the way was terrifying because the woman who's the landlord here, English is not her first language or her best language, and the communication was really shaky the whole time. Like, we were confused about, like... Part of it is also we don't know terminology. Like, she said something about no subleasing, and we were like, we didn't know what that meant, so we were worried she was saying there would be no lease. We had to, like, contact your dad to figure out the hell that meant, and, like, we didn't have the lease. Like,
no, it was just the way she said it. She's like, oh, we can't sublease. Is that going to be a problem? And it was like...
Well, she also didn't let us sign the lease online. So, we had to come here to sign the lease. So, we weren't going to make multiple 6-hour drives to Boston, because especially at this point, I had not yet gotten used to 6-hour drives, which I have now.
Yeah, and I mean, we had to move.
Right.
We didn't really have time to plan out.
So we just kind of packed all our shit into the moving van, drove to the house, met them here, had them walk us through, and then we signed the lease on the spot, and made a triple rent down payment.
Yeah, something that was not agreed upon before, nor was the duration of the rent.
We probably were warned about it.
No.
No?
No.
Well, it was first month, last month, and security deposit. $2,300 a piece. I keep saying $2,400, but it's $2,300 for the rent. Yeah. I don't know why I always have it in my head that it's $2,400.
Because it just sounds like more of an ass.
Triple $2,300 right out the gate. Well, now we have to back the story up a little bit and talk about what was actually going on back at home. Because in between going to RadCon, coming down here to House Hunt, actually moving, you know, all of that is a lot of big life stuff that's going on that's taking up a lot of my time. And in the meanwhile, I'm also feeling really ambitious as a creator, because I had entered this mindset where I was like, I had experienced this ego death from smoking weed all the time, and I was like, I'll never be able to expand what I can do by myself. Like, I need to work with other people if I want to be able to take my content to another level. So, like, a big part of us moving here was about me wanting to be in more of a community spirit, work with my friends, and I was also hiring people even more than before, because again, I had tons of disposable income, because the place we lived in before was cheap as hell. I was making good money on Patreon, and I was throwing it around like a motherfucker, going out to eat all the fucking time, buying fuckloads of weed, paying my friends to contribute like really minor shit to my videos. Like the Finish or Fail video, I paid Tom like $75 to just design that little can that spins around for like 5 seconds of the video. I paid Munchie like $50 for the intro animation. Like, I was just flipping around. I paid Jesse $100 for his verse on Faith in Humanity, which didn't end up coming out till way the fuck later. But yeah, so like at the time, I was working on like big ambitious projects. So I'm planning out how they marketed, which I'm putting all of my eggs in the how they marketed basket. Because I had basically figured out that the only way anything ever succeeds is through marketing. And the only reason my videos ever get big is through marketing. I give them marketable titles, marketable subject matter, marketable thumbnails, and those are the only videos that blow up. It doesn't matter how much effort you put in, none of that shit matters. But I wanted to make high-effort content, and it seemed like people wanted that from me. Like,
this room is making me feel hella dry and itchy.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You gotta take your sweater off, probably. Are you wearing anything under that?
No, I can't take this off.
It's pretty hot in here.
It's not that it's hot, it's just like dry as
Might help.
fuck. Is that gonna fuck with the audio?
No, it'll be fine. So like...
Maybe I have like allergic reaction or something to the dust.
Like, over the... In late 2017... when we first moved in together, I was putting out just like tons and tons of small content. It was like vlogs, podcasts, like stuff that doesn't take much effort. A lot of people were getting sick of it, so I was trying to make like really big, high effort videos, but they take a long time. Like it takes a month to make a really high effort video. And when I had done, when I did the We Have Accepted Mediocrity video, which was almost all Devue's work. It's not like I worked on that for 2 months. That was an unscripted video, but like Devue spent like 2 months working on it, and it was fucking amazing, and everybody who saw it was like, this is incredible, I want more like this. So then I did the Finish or Fail 2019 edition, and Devue spent probably a month editing that. Comes out.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares, because it's my fault. It was the wrong subject matter to try and put that much effort into. Like, nobody wanted to hear a negative review of A Place Further Than the Universe. Like, the only people who were watching the show loved it. It was not a video for anyone, except for just an excuse to make a high-effort video, which doesn't really matter, as I've said before. And that was where
If you're going to try to wow everybody, you have to make it have mass appeal.
Right. And I was also trying
Hollywood
to use it as an advertisement for how they marketed, because I was coming up with that idea, but because that video bombed, it didn't work as an advertisement for how they marketed. So, and I was being very coy about how they marketed is, because I have a tendency, if I talk about a project too much, I won't do it. Because I get the satisfaction of having done it, from just talking about it. So, I was trying not to talk about it, but this means that my patrons are just like, having to act on good faith that I'm going to make this thing and that it's going to be impressive. And a lot of them just weren't vibing with what I was doing at the time. A lot of people didn't like that I was smoking weed so much and using all this like color grading in my videos, which was only because I had no set, because we were in a tiny house and I could only film in my office. So the only way to make it visually distinct was to throw colors on it. But like people didn't like that, or they blamed it on the weed. So like, just in general, a lot of people were losing favor with my content, especially my hardcore fans who support me on Patreon. So, when I go off to try to make something that I think is going to please those people, but it doesn't come out for a couple of months, well, then we also run into the problem of, this isn't the only big ambitious project that I launch into, because I also get this genius idea to make my masterpiece album the world over. Which is still, like, my favorite thing I've ever made, but obviously nobody cares about it, and it took months to finally get released. But I released a few, like, the early tracks at the time, and I was mega excited about it. And then I'm also making a documentary about Denzel Curry. And this is because I had been trying to launch my Digibros Turntable channel, which was a music review channel that initially had just been a bunch of vlogs, but I loved doing it. I loved working on that channel. Every video had tons of spirit and energy, and I was like, I wish this channel would take off, because I was way more excited about it than I was about the main channel. And I had done these 2 really high-effort videos that nobody watched. One was Death Grip's Beatdown Madness, and the other one was Oliver's Chlorine is my album of the year 2016. Those 2 videos... 2016 or 2017? 2017 is when we met.
2017.
Yeah.
Baby.
So those 2 videos I'd put a lot of effort into, but not even my patrons watched them, because most of them don't care about music. They had like 2,000 views apiece, and it was like a week of work, for each.
There's no way for it to catch on.
Right, nobody cared. So when I discovered all this stuff about Denzel Curry, and I got really into him, I was a super big fan, I was watching all his interviews, and finding that this guy he's kind of blowing up. He was on the come up, and there was another video about him that had gotten a ton of views because he had retweeted it or something. He had shared it himself. So I figure if I make like a fully fledged Denzel Curry documentary, then I could probably get a shitload of views by having, because he would probably promote it. And the main point of it was to like explain how his message had been missed. Because for a long time, people were underestimating this guy. And it was just starting to be that people were catching on that there was more to Denzel Curry than meets the eye. And he was starting to get bigger. And
People
this was all leading up to his new album was coming out. There was a lot of hype around it. So I'm like, this is the perfect way to blow up my music channel. But the project kept getting bigger. Because the more research I did, the more I realized more and more things I wanted to talk about. The project kept getting longer. Because initially I had just recorded like a 45-minute unscripted ramble about him. And then started editing it. But like in the editing process, I was watching every piece of information I could find about him. And that was when I just wanted to add more and more and try to make it really complete. So I'm working on that. I was actively editing it. And working on my album, and working on how they marketed. This is a recipe for disaster. Because none of these things are getting completed, and meanwhile, we're trying to move out. So, in the actual month that we did the move, I don't think I posted anything. And, like, we recorded a fuckload of Let's Plays that we were going to try to use as a stopgap.
Yeah,
but
and I was supposed to edit them, and...
Well, the hard drive fucked up.
Yeah.
Because in the move,
Oh, yeah, you're right.
The power cord or whatever got... like, we thought the hard drive had just died on the move and that we'd lost all the footage. Eventually, when Tom moved in, he figured out that it was just a problem with the casing and not with the actual hard drive itself, which he had installed in my computer, I think. Or maybe in the server, I don't know. But, I forgot to get that back from him. But
the hard drive?
The one that's in the server, because he took the server.
Which one? Is that the one that I bought?
No, that's connected to my computer.
Okay, because I was going to be like, nigga, I spent like a lot of money on that, and I never got to use it because you just swiped it.
I did not. You gave it to me.
I did.
You offered it to me.
I did.
You were like, I don't use
it.
this. Here.
You needed it, man.
So anyways.
But yeah, I did get swiped.
So the stopgap content is missing, and every month with Patreon, on the first day of the month, a whole lot of people get declined every time. So your Patreon number always dips on the first of the month, and then it usually climbs back up steadily. But in the lead up to this, over this month that I hadn't put out any content and wasn't being clear enough about what I was working, because I just kept telling people, like, I've got some big projects, they're gonna be exciting, like, just hold out. It wasn't selling people, you know, because there wasn't enough details, it wasn't enough to get excited about, and people were just getting fed up. So, the moving into this house, it would have been that I had enough money to feel what I thought I would be comfortable. Like, I thought, we'll move in, I will be comfortable with the amount that I am making.
Because the amount you were making, they say, like, your rent should be, like, a fourth of your...
third.
A third?
Yeah. Your rent should be a third of your income. It
was like...
I never heard that, so I didn't know that little tidbit. But
yeah, but the amount that you were making, yeah.
It would have been like, or maybe, yeah, it would have been like 2/5 of my income, because
yeah.
I was making like $5,000 a month probably, and this is $2,300, so, well, maybe it was more than $5,000. I was definitely making enough that it was like less than half of my income, and I'm thinking, you know, my expectation is I will make more money continually, because I had been. I had always made more money over time by becoming bigger, working on bigger projects, getting more people excited. I'm thinking how they market is going to be huge. I'm thinking that the PCPHQ is going to happen, and that's going to lead to more success.
Everything is just going to grow, because that's
right.
What your brain kind of like assumes.
Well, the exact opposite happened. In the month leading up to this, my Patreon starts shrinking really bad because I'm not putting out enough content. I'm not explaining what's happening well enough.
You take a big hit with the travel expenses.
Well, this is where everything goes to shit, because I had like probably $24,000 in the bank when we started this. Well, first of all, the travel cost is like $1,000 just moving down. It probably should have been a couple $100 cheaper, but the U-Haul guy for whatever reason, had told us that it would be cheaper to do a round trip than it would be to do a straight trip.
Because on top of how much, the U-Haul costs, there's also all the gas we had to put into the
right.
U-Haul, all the tolls.
And driving all the fucking way back to Rochester.
All the time that we wasted making an extra leg of our trip.
What we did was, we drove...
that's invaluable.
We drove the truck down with all the stuff in it, unloaded the stuff, and then drove the truck back to Rochester, then took my car and drove back to Boston. And that was, all of that on top, it added up to $1,000 when it should have probably been $800 after gas and all that. So it was extra, but at the time it was even worse because we thought we wasted even more because we thought that it would have only been the flat rate, the $350 to do the straight trip.
Well, it was really upsetting because we didn't know until we returned the U-Haul in.
Right.
And it's whoa, this is way more than the estimate. What is going on here? And there's nothing that they can do about it. And then we have to drive back.
Yeah.
It was just, because...
It was a fucking nightmare. And U-Haul exists to fuck people over, which my family's dealt with many times. I had to
leave because I was so upset. I had to leave the building.
So we had to pay all this money on the U-Haul, and then the unexpected triple down payment on the house, which I don't think I knew that was coming, because it was
no, you didn't.
Yeah, it's almost $7,000.
Because usually you would only pay the first month and the security deposit. You usually don't have to pay the last month.
Right. But it was because of the fact, the reason she charged me so much is because I make, she was worried about how much money I make.
Yeah, I think, that's what it was.
Because she let us move in because my credit was so amazing, but she was concerned that I don't make enough money, and I have now learned that renters tend to do this. If you have bad credit or if you don't make enough, then they charge you extra to just make sure you're good for it. Basically to scare you out of trying to move here if you can't actually afford it.
They want to have money in case something does go wrong.
Right, but we did not have clarity on this until the last possible minute. So I'm down $8,000 right off the bat as of moving in, and my Patreon is tanking. So I look at this is also tax time. We're right around tax time. I run my taxes, I owe $15,000. In my bank, there is $15,000. So we've just moved in, and I am basically functionally bankrupt, in my mind. That's how I took it, is, I have no money. And so I don't pay my taxes, because I'm well, if I pay my taxes now, we'll have no money, and then if anything goes wrong, if the Patreon keeps tanking, I won't be able to afford rent.
I don't know, man.
If we injure ourselves, we don't have any money for medical bills.
I mean, everything did go wrong from there on, but
What? Do you think it would have been better to pay the taxes and have no money in the bank? Is that what you're trying to say?
I have no idea. I just know that we've dug ourselves into a hole that...
It was all at once.
An incredible amount of lifestyle change.
Oh, yeah.
When we moved down to the old place and you set up a payment plan, I assume you want to get out of debt as fast as possible because the interest.
Dude, it'll be, from the numbers that I have now in front of me, it will be unbelievably easy because I am now making 3 times what I made when we moved in here, and we will have half the rent.
It seems like something that we can do. It's paying off the taxes would have been extremely difficult if we stayed here.
Yeah, no, it would be almost impossible.
I think it would be possible if we penny pinched and I worked 2 jobs.
Right.
Which I'm willing to work to help us pay rent, but not to fucking do your taxes.
It was the worst possible hit I could have, because I was fully prepared to pay my taxes. I had $24,000 in my bank.
Yeah, it was supposed to be we're gonna move and we have tax money.
I'm gonna pay $15,000 to the government.
And
I'll have
for dessert.
A comfortable $8,000 left, except that $8,000 is now gone.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, it's I don't feel comfortable paying my taxes right now, and I should have just set up a payment plan right then and there, but I didn't know about it. Eventually my dad told me, because he had been in a huge amount of tax debt from not paying it for 10 years, and he did a payment plan and got it all sorted out. So I'm in the situation, I'm just we move in, and I immediately am we're fucked, right? So
Yeah.
my vision of us moving in here was we're going to move in and right away we're going to start furnishing this place. We're going to build a set in this room. We're going to buy all this cool stuff. We're going to put shit all over the walls. We're going to have like tapestries and cool shit everywhere. We're going to make this house look amazing. Instead, it's July 1st or whatever, June 1st, and I'm like, I have to hit the ground running and start making videos right now. Like, these hardcore fans, these patrons, they need to be feeling like they're getting the content they want.
Yeah.
So that's why I launched right into the Gecko estate and started live streaming with Digibro versus everybody and was just like, I'm going to be out there all the time. I'm going to be constantly having content out there. Well, this led to a lot of complications because, first of all, one of our plans when we moved here was to try to launch your career as a YouTuber. And we were going to work on your content. We were going to have corrupting your kids be a bigger deal. Like, I had all these plans to do all this stuff with you. And immediately I'm like, well, I can't do any of this stuff with you because I have to save my career. So I'm like all day working on videos and you're just like kind of around like, well, I have nothing to do.
I'm involved in like Digibro versus everybody. I was involved in. I was also working on like scripts for like different videos and stuff.
You were working on stuff, but like during Gecko Estate filming where I'm like running around the house for 3 hours.
I don't even remember what was going on then. I just
remember you being very like you were very sad that you had not enough to do. Like we'd moved in and I'm like completely off doing this shit and you're like, well, is there anything I can do? And I'm like, I don't know, I'm trying to save my career.
I don't know. I don't really remember a whole lot of what was going on there because like I was starting to get sick and
well, so through the early part of June, it was just workaholic, work, and it worked a little bit. Like I gained some patrons back. A lot of people really liked the Gecko Estate. We were doing the live streams. Now, on top of this, we moved into this place not really realizing that there's no central AC. There are only 2 air conditioning units in the house, one in the living room and one in the office, and everywhere else it's hot as fuck. And in Boston, if it's even warm, it's humid.
Super humid.
So it's fucking balls humid, it's mega hot. Summer in Boston is dog shit, just as winter in Boston is dog. Every moment in Boston is dog shit.
It's like, really funny because like if you go into like Quincy, which is a city near us, which we did a couple times in the summer, people like, well, there was a fucking bug. I'm getting freaked out. But like people would leave and go on vacation to travel in the summer because of the humidity. Like all the small businesses would be like closed for the summer vacation, and it's like
they don't want to be there.
They even don't want to be here. Like why does anybody live here?
And muggy. The summer sucks. The winter sucks. So like we had come here thinking like, well, sure the winter is bad, but it's not as bad as Rochester, which it's not, and we'll be here in the summer. It'll be fun. No, it was fucking miserable because we had no AC and it's fucking humid as shit. And, we're running around just like shirts off all the time.
It was super hard to sleep.
Yeah, very hard to sleep.
Our room was like, we couldn't breathe. We had to go get a fan and it wasn't even enough. The ceiling fan wasn't enough.
And we're still addicted to weed. And we brought a significant amount of it with us from Rochester.
1.5 ounces or something.
2 ounces and a vape pen. And we had a half a tab of acid, or 1 tab that we split in half.
I should just gave you that tab.
So
have done it.
That lasts about 2 weeks. We run out of weed. There's a week gap where we don't have any, and that was like one of the more fun times because that was when Econ and Ben came up, and we hung out with them and Zen Huxtable for a couple days.
The Great Migration.
But like I was fucking dying of weed withdrawals for like a straight week, and then
that happened so early to our move.
I have a perfect memory. I know everything that happened. I could tell you down to the minute what happened each day if you want.
Perspective that way, like that was like
right after we moved. We moved day 1 after the move. I recorded the song Kids Living in Dust Buildings Up Here in Boston. What the hell is that song called?
I fucking
Dust Force.
Dust Force, yeah.
I recorded Dust Force day 1. The next day did
yeah, that
Gecko
tells
Estate.
you what kind of place that we moved into.
Yeah,
where
a
you
dusty ass
be
fucking building.
inspired to write a song called Dust Force. Meanwhile, this is a place that we're putting $2,300 down a month to live in.
So, so I recorded Dust Force day 1. The next day did Gecko Estate episode 1. I did one of those every day for like 4 days. We started Digibro versus Everybody. We're doing that. And then about 2 weeks in is when, that was when, no, so Ben hadn't moved up. He moved up then. He moved back because it was Econ brought him up here.
Yeah, but that was like in June.
Yeah, so we hung out with them and Zen.
It's weird to think that he's been up here like most of the time that we've been here. It's just like, we see Ben so little.
Yeah.
Like, Ben will come over.
Well, he lives way the fuck across town and has no car.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
so, and like, what are we gonna do? Like, unless we have something to do.
I mean, exactly. That's like the problem with PCPHQ.
Right.
Like,
and
most of the guys would be like that.
Well, it was also that just fucking, I had to bust my ass the whole fucking time we've been here. Like,
yeah.
Because, literally, like, we show up, and again, my expectation is, gonna take a train into the city every weekend. We're gonna do all this shit, and like, right away I'm like, we can't go into the city because I have to work.
Yeah.
Like, I can't stop working until the Patreon's at an amount that I'm comfortable with, because I have to start putting money back in the bank. And like, I get tunnel vision too. Like, I'm not the type of person who can like focus on getting lots of work done and also take lots of breaks. I'm getting better at it. Like, this week, for instance, we were like, we have a whole week to pack the house, and like, my instinct was do it in the first 2 days. But then as we started packing, and I realized that if we packed too fast, we would have nothing to do for the rest of the week.
And like,
I started relaxing and taking more time to do other shit.
You can go anywhere.
Yeah. So like, so I'm trying to get better about this, especially because I think it contributed to the problems we're gonna get to. But like, so the first few weeks, I'm just like nonstop hauling ass. Ben and Econ come up. Here's where the disillusionment began. Because aside from the fact that already I've got no money, our house is boiling fucking hot and humid and shitty and dusty, we can't afford to furnish it, but also we go back to Faneuil Hall, which was one of the, like, the big selling places for me.
Oh, yeah.
That Munchie had taken us to. So we go there with Ben and Econ to show it to Econ. And we all get food there, because Faneuil Hall is this gigantic building full of food stalls. None of our food is good. We all went to different places, it's all overpriced, and none of it's good. And so immediately I was like, this place just went from, like, wow, 100 possibilities, I'll come here every weekend and try something different, to, oh, I don't care about this place at all.
Yeah.
Like, not even slightly, no interest. That's a huge difference. That is a big disillusionment from, I can't wait to try every single food stall, to, oh, this place is a tourist trap. And, like, we like, realized that while we were there. There's still stuff going on. Like, there's, like, there was lots of street performances going on and stuff, so it's kind of neat, but
neat stuff
all that's there is food.
But it's like, how many times
food and street performers.
Eat out? And, like, if you eat out, you're just gonna have your favorite places that you go back to.
Right.
Like, we can find that in the town we're in.
So then, right after Ben and Econ came, I think it was afterwards, your dad came down, and we hung out with him for a couple days. We saw some historic sites. We went to the aquarium.
Which is dang.
So we did a lot of the fun stuff in Boston, but it's all stuff that you would not do, right? Like, why would you go to the aquarium twice in the same year? You know, why would you go to old Boston twice in the same year? It's like, we did all the fun shit, and then it was just like, oh yeah, I guess we did it, you know? So then, after that, there was a day that you were like, I think I might need weed. So we called up Zen, got him to put us in contact with a friend.
I forgot about that.
Who got us an ounce of medical marijuana. And it was too powerful.
Way more potent than the stuff that you'd be used to.
Yeah, so
holy fuck.
We start smoking this weed.
The nugs were like this big.
And a couple days into this, we get into the most impassioned conversation of my life. So impassioned it lasted 3 days. 3 days, one conversation.
No sleep.
No sleep. No, very little eating. And it was boiling hot. This was like the apex of summer. It's like, we're about to enter July. It's real fucking
There were like
hot.
heat advisories. Like if you turn on the TV, it's like if you go outside, make sure you're drinking water. And like
weird shit's going on in the city too because
it's like close to the 4th of July.
I want you to consider all of these things. We're in a brand new place. We have just learned that we have no money. We've been like spending the whole month trying to figure out what the hell we're doing. This is around when I made my video like I'm gonna try to make 1 million subscribers, and I had written out this huge plan for how I was going to integrate you into my work entirely. It was like, I'm not going to work alone anymore.
Business meeting.
Yeah, I was like, we're going to do everything together. I have all these plans. I have these big video ideas. And then we get into this days-long conversation. And as this is happening, I'm having all these I'm not going to go into too much detail about this particular series of events because there's a 2 months review that you can listen to. Pay $5, you get access to literally you get hundreds of hours of content. One of them is a 2 months review.
You can never be without this man's voice and my voice.
It's hours long.
I don't know why you would pay for
and
that.
It goes into depth about this story, but like basically the amount of stress on us was as high as it could possibly be, and we're in the middle of the heat stroke summer and burning through weed. And like I smoked on my own like half an ounce in a day, and you had like probably a quarter ounce that same day. That was like day 2 of the conversation. We smoked the whole weed. We smoked all of it. And the conversation continued for a third day.
You had a tab of acid before this started, too.
No, that was the week before.
Okay.
That was before your dad came down and before Econ and Ben.
Was it? Before?
Yeah. Because it was at the tail... We smoked all the weed in the first 2 weeks, then dropped the acid and did the dab pen. We're clean for a week, got the new weed from the other guy, and then we were smoking that for a week leading into this event.
Jesus Christ.
Told you, my memory's perfect. So
I like repressed a lot of it.
Yeah,
like, it's just kind of jumbled up in my mind.
So we've been talking for 3 straight days, and we run out of weed. Now, this is, I think, the final component, because, again, when you're really addicted like we were, the withdrawals are pretty bad, and the worst part of the weed withdrawals is you lose your appetite. You don't want to eat. So, day 3 of our conversation...
It's not even just that, like, your stomach feels really fucking weird.
Yeah, your stomach feels weird, and you don't want to eat.
It's like, most people don't have, like... a dependency on marijuana. Like, most people won't get addicted, but some people, like, biologically...
$300
yeah,
in weed
but,
every
like,
week.
if you're biologically somebody who, like, has a tendency towards addiction, like, you can get really badly addicted to weed.
Yeah, tell me about it. So we finished off our bag of weed, day 2 of conversation. Day 3, we've reached the point where we're coming down.
Oh my god, during this time period, like, I legit came out as an autist.
Yeah.
Like, I put on my Facebook, I wrote, like, this huge post about how all my life, like, I was different, and, like, I learned what it meant to be, like, to truly understand yourself, and I'm autistic and proud.
Yeah.
And then I told my whole family, and they're just like, you're crazy.
This was at the same time that I was becoming Kirito.
Yeah.
Because I had mastered true speed, and I edited the Fooly Cooly video in, like, an hour, and, because I was working on because when I did the I want to hit 1 million subscribers video, the idea was put in the comments what you want me to analyze, and whatever gets the most upvotes, I'll do. And like one of the biggest ones was Fooly Cooly Progressive. So I was like, I'll do the original first, and I had this video about me not what's her name? Fucking oh my god, I forgot her fucking Mamimi.
Oh yeah, that was a great video.
Yeah, it was 6 minutes long, and I edited the whole thing in 3 30-minute chunks as we were having our conversation, and I then recorded the 5th Gecko Estate, the one about autism, like autists being new types and being like the key to the future. That was the beginning of the end, because the conversation as it went, we started getting manic. Because we've been up for 3 days, we're not eating anymore, we're coming down off of weed, it's fucking insanely hot and humid, and we have no AC, and so we're just sweating balls, and we're just having this crazy engrossing conversation that when we watched the CGP Grey video, You Are Too, became a different story. And this is where we convinced ourselves that we were like
we're
trans-dimensional magical girls experiencing all of reality simultaneously through two different brains that are having conversations. We're each two people.
Different relationships.
So we're having 4 conversations. Shit got weird. And somewhere in this, we tried to sleep. I managed to get just enough sleep to come down from the mania, and you had like some kind of heat stroke in your sleep or something.
Oh, I had a fucking weird dream, and then I started hallucinating afterwards.
And then that was when things went bad.
I started doing really fucking weird stuff. Like, I convinced myself that I could like use both my hands at the same time, at like different personalities were controlling different things,
brains were
and
doing
if I were able to like think in completely perfect separate hemispheres of my mind, I can control both my hands. And I was fucking doing it though. I was like editing a video and drawing pictures at the same time, but it fucking was really insane.
The thing is that,
it was like it was not comprehensive at all.
The thing is that nothing that was going on, like, is beyond explanation to me. Like, all of it makes sense in some way. It's just that the thought process was bad.
Yeah, it was dangerous. You were definitely...
So,
not okay.
So yeah, things were not okay, and I eventually came down, but you didn't, and this one thing led to another, and you were in a mental hospital for a week.
I sat in the road. That was what it was. Like, I, was protesting something. I was saying I believe in love and sitting in the road, and I, refused to get out of the road, and you called the cops.
No, it was not like that at all.
No, it was. You told...
That was after the cops showed up. You were in the road.
No,
you were in the road before that.
I went in the road because you called the cops.
Well, sure.
And I was scared. But yeah,
there were 2 days
I was out of control.
There were 2 days of very brutal...
I needed to be sedated and sleep for a week because I was
there was 2 days of brutal mania that I didn't know how to handle, and when it got to a point where I was literally going to die from exhaustion because I had not slept more than an hour in 5 days, and I did not have the strength to restrain you, and you were like...
I had,
I was worried that you were becoming dangerous, and I literally couldn't do anything.
No, I had retard strength. I didn't have any function. I was not thinking right, and I was just being violent, and I was in animal mode.
Yeah, well, I called each of your parents, and they were like, you need to just call the police. So I did, which was probably not even a good idea, but I don't know what the hell else. I mean, this is all a learning experience.
It was, I'm glad you did. I'm glad that I was...
Well, I'm not glad that you ended up in... Because of the retarded fucking bureaucracy of mass health, you ended up in... And just the fact
that it was, a holiday weekend, so none of the doctors were, there.
Yeah.
And all of the hospitals were completely full, so I was, sent to this place that, lo and behold, 2 people were killed because they were overdosed by their doctors.
The place is a... Don't ever go to a fucking mental asylum. It's not a place that you go to heal. It's a place that homeless people are put in when they are out of control.
They basically, had people come in and they were like, oh, they got me on the streets, or... I'm an old person, and somebody found me in a state that they
no one who was there had a situation even similar to yours.
There was a fucking person who... I shouldn't be saying this because I signed all these documents, but they made me sign them when I was on drugs, and they didn't tell you what you were signing.
You should be saying everything. You should be saying every fucking thing that happened. It was a... Well, we have the 2 months review. This is not the place to go into super depth about this week. But it was a fucking nightmare.
I'm grateful for the people that worked there and were able to, people who are willing to put themselves through hell because, it's not a good situation for anybody involved. It's the sad reality of the world, and something, sometimes people are really dangerous and a danger to everyone around them. So, it's a necessity to have facilities that do that. And
they need to be run a lot better.
People have come very far because... Even 50 years ago, they were giving people fucking lobotomies.
Yeah, we've come a long way, but we need to go a lot further.
But if you don't sleep for 5 hours and you have a drug problem... 5
days.
Yeah, 5 days and you have a drug problem and you're, you've never experienced anything like this before,
Yeah.
you probably need professional help. And I got it, so, like,
Yeah.
I'm
well,
happy.
the week in the mental facility was the worst week of anyone involved's life, I think.
Yeah, and I'm very blessed that my family and you and all the doctors were there for me. But it kind of, like, was...
Well, I'll never trust the government for anything ever again.
You know.
And I'm taking... We're both taking way better care of ourselves after this. Because before this, both of us were very much the type of person to view life and our bodies as an experiment. And we literally had been planning this show for a long time. We were planning...
Oh my god, Our Body is a Life Hack.
Yeah, we were planning a show called Our Body is a Life Hack where we were going to try out like
the
things
first
like...
episode was the
Uberman sleep schedule, which would have activated this if we'd actually recorded it. And like to do keto diet for a while and like just do like experimental body... The kind of stuff Vsauce does, you know?
Yeah.
Like, so... That's the way that we viewed life, though, and, like, I always was like that. Like, I'd always experimented with weird sleep schedules and, like, doing fucking shit to... After this, we stopped all that. Like, it definitely put a lot of gray hairs on my head and aged me about 25 years into adulthood. From childhood. From, like, an infant to the actual age I am. I aged that distance.
I definitely...
we became a lot more serious about our own health.
Completely.
Yeah. So that was the first week of July, was that event transpiring. And the rest of July was a lot of rehabilitation because it was a crazy, confusing clusterfuck with no answers about, like, what had really happened or what to do from that point forward.
Nobody give you answers and nobody knows because it's like, they don't really know everything about conditions like that. They can't really give you a diagnosis until...
And yet they will give you diagnosis and prescribe you pills that other doctors will tell you shouldn't take.
Yeah, it's very conflicting. Like, the doctors from the hospital, they sent me to, like, this particular... Who was the one that prescribes the meds?
Psychiatrist.
The psychiatrist. They sent me to, like, a nurse who, like, you know, just took orders and wanted to give me the highest dosage possible, and then I went to therapists who were like, oh, well, we think you should do this and this and this, and it's like, they don't really fucking know, and you just have to be really careful and take your health seriously, and if you feel like, you know, you don't have the resources to take care of your mind, and you don't, like, you should get help immediately, because it's not something to fuck around with. You can ruin your relationships and your whole life. You can die.
So,
but it took a while for me to figure out, like, how to live after that.
So July became one part your rehabilitation month and one part my introspection month. This is when I wrote my pamphlet book, Fixed That For Ya, where I try to fix all the world's problems. It's only ever been released to patrons because I still haven't finished editing it a year later. Maybe this will happen after we move. I wrote that book. I think I did a couple videos. I was, like, working on some light novel stuff and, like, was just working on a lot of, like, other shit because, like, frankly, after the events that had transpired, it was difficult to just go back to, like, doing things regularly, you know? But I wrote a couple scripts in July that I sent to Devu and did the Shinsekai Yori video at the end of the month. And then when August was rolling around, I was like, fuck. I need to do a stunt. Like, my Patreon's not recovering fast enough. A lot of my fans who had been around before, like, in spite of the fact that I had done, like, the Gecko Estate, some of the people who would have loved it just didn't even watch it, because they were already, like, disinterested, you know? And so I was like, I gotta pull some kind of crazy thing. So on the last day of July, I made a bet with all my patrons that I could put out a satisfying video every day for the month of August. And that's what I did. I put out a video every day for the month of August, and it was fucking brutal. Because it was like every day, wake up, try to get everything done that we had to get done. Because at this point, we were taking good care of our bodies, we were waking up early, we were going to the gym almost, you know, every other day. We're going for walks in the morning when we're not going to the gym. You know, I'm trying to help you because you're still, like, recuperating. And also try to come up with an idea for a video by, like, by midday and then try to get it completed by midnight. And I had stipulated with myself that every video had to be out by midnight. I'd never really set a rule, but like because I had done that to myself, it was even worse. So every single day, on my birthday, we went into the city, and this was the second wave of disillusionment. Because Faneuil Hall had already been one thing, but this time we went to Fenway Park, which is a big park in the middle of the city, and like the mentality we'd had, because you were like, we should go into the city for your birthday and do fun stuff, but we didn't really know what to do. Like, where do we go? Where is fun stuff in the city? How do you find it? If we go to one spot, is there going to be stuff in walking distance of that spot? Like, where should we look? And, like, we had been to this area before, but it had been in the snow. So, like, walking around the park was nice. It was beautiful because it was summertime. There's a, like a gorgeous botanical garden kind of area.
Yeah, food trucks, so you can have a little bit of fun there.
It was just kind of like, well, we can eat and shop, but, like, there was no shops I particularly wanted to go into. We went into Anime Zaka again. Got some stuff there.
Stuff.
We saw a movie at a kind of crappy movie theater. We saw Teen Titans Go, which was great. And it was just kind of like, man, there's not really that much to do here if you're not going to eat. But it's so hard to get into the city because from where we live at the end of the Red Line. And in a town called Braintree. Doesn't matter if I say it now because we're leaving in a day. Yeah. But, we live in the town Braintree, which is like 30 minutes out of Boston by car. Takes about an hour on the train.
Yeah, it's the end. It's the last stop on
and,
the Red Line.
Like, our mentality of, like, we'll go into Boston every weekend and do something. Well, if you go all the fucking way into Boston just to eat at a restaurant...
Okay.
Not worth it.
No, because even if you're driving, you're going to have to pay a fucking ass ton for parking. If you're taking the train, it's going to be...
the cost of a train. Like...
the cost of a train and hours of your time.
And, well, because you have to... like, if you drive to the train station... because you can bus to the train station if you want to take even fucking longer. Or you can drive there and pay for parking and for train tickets. And then... if you want to get, like, you could get a day pass for even more if you wanted to travel more than once, but if you don't want to pay that much and you just get a two-way pass, well, you're just kind of stuck wherever you go, you know? Unless you want to walk everywhere, which I don't mind.
I mean, you can usually walk most places. If you're going to, like, travel, an all-day pass is worth it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the trains are
we just
fine.
have, like, ideally, when you hang out at a place... you would just drive on in, find somewhere you want to eat, have a seat. Like, I don't mind driving 30 minutes into the city to eat somewhere, but I do mind driving 30 minutes into the city, except half the time it's an hour because of traffic, and also you have to pay, like, $30 for parking most places if you're there for more than an hour, and... like, there's never, like, a cluster of enough things to do that you could just go to one spot and then do things all day, because...
everything's expensive.
Everything's expensive and spread out, and most of it's just food or shopping at the same couple places.
I mean, it's fun to, walk around and look at shops, but, like, you only want to do that for, like, a couple hours, not all day.
I mean, like, let me paint you a picture of Virginia Beach, for instance. Vic and Hope live on the outskirts of Norfolk, close to Virginia Beach. They were like, hey, let's go get something to eat in the city of Norfolk, in the downtown, where there's tons of shit. There's tons of cool restaurants, tons of fun places. And we get in the car, we drive 30 minutes into town, and we park in front of the place for free, walk in, eat, get in the car, and go home. And it's not a hassle. And that's just... what I think things are like. Because
me too.
I didn't think about the fact that, like, when we went there the first time, we had to pay a lot for parking because we parked under the Prudential Center.
No shit, it's going to be expensive. But there is no parking.
It's like that everywhere.
Yeah.
It's everywhere in Boston. And, like, unless you want to be too far away from anything to do anything. So, it's just, like, there's no easy way to just, like, go into Boston, do a couple things, and come home. It's gotta be a day trip, but there's not enough to do to fill out a day trip. So, i.e. it sucks. And that I realized that on my birthday, like, even though I had a fun time, like, that sinking feeling that, like, oh, we've already experienced all that Boston really has to offer was, like, permeating
and I mean,
me.
if you live there, it's obviously different. If you're like, oh, I'm gonna hang out
Sure,
in the park,
but you
then
can't
get a coffee and go back home.
Yeah, Boston is
or
a
I'm
place.
gonna take a bike ride.
Boston is a place that I think would be amazing to live in, but you can't get a standalone house there. There are none.
Yeah.
You either live in an apartment.
You have a city life, like.
Or a multifamily
you can't
home.
have the best of both worlds.
You can't do it. You can't have the good old libertarian experience of being able to yell death grips at 3 a.m. and record music and do podcasts constantly and swear and walk around naked and also have the proximity. Unless you live in Virginia Beach, in which case everything is convenient and easy.
People do that in the city. That's why nobody wants to live there.
Yeah.
Like, you're not gonna... If you get an apartment, it's gonna be loud.
Yeah,
be on the road.
We won't even be the ones who are annoying other people. It's gonna be other people annoying us more likely. Because even when we lived in a townhouse, part of the problem was that the family on this side is fucking screaming at each other, and the family on this side is cooking nasty food and fucking cranking up their music every Saturday.
Fucking.
So, again, fucking, their bed clearly shares a wall with my office. So yeah, like, we don't want to live in the thick of things, but living outside of it is prohibitively, like, you don't want to do anything. You don't want to go into the city for that. And, like, again, the same amount of fun, like, the same amount of goodness of restaurant, the same amount of funness of place to go exists in Norfolk with none of those issues. None of the bad traffic, none of the fucking
fun places
bad
to
parking.
Go to, tons of cool bars,
right?
An awesome public library. You can be on the ocean.
Like, we just thought Boston seemed like it was the coolest place, and it probably is.
It's really
just
cool.
Not if you want to live the way we want to live.
Yeah.
So that was settling in around then, and this is, we're early on, and I'm already like realizing like nothing about this is going the way I wanted.
This plan isn't working out.
Yeah. And, like, sure, my friends are kind of around, but, like, we don't want to hang out with them all the time. Because Ben and Munchie...
lives close to us.
All Ben and Munchie ever talk about is endless war, and I'm not a part of it, so I don't know, like, I always feel alienated when they're having a conversation.
There's no point to get into it.
Yeah, well, why would I?
It seems like a lot of work to... I mean...
It's a creative endeavor for a bunch of people who...
It seems really cool, but,
want
like...
to do this thing, but...
You know, if you're
there's
trying
no money
to watch
to be made
every
from it.
anime that comes out every year, it kind of cuts into learning new things.
So I spent all of August working constantly, but in July was also when Tom had moved in. Oh my god, I just remembered. So when Tom had first moved in, he and I were like constantly scheming about like what are we going to do to try to make money. And Tom follows this dude who's like a...
Oh my god.
Like a social media guru who's on every platform.
We're just getting into Tom moving in.
I totally forgot about this era
my god.
where we had done all this research on social media, and like what we were planning to do was like make a website where our plan was to go to every social media site that we could find that was important, study the way that things work there, and then find a way to make a piece of content appear on all those sites in a way that works for that site. Because that was the advice of this guy who makes fuckloads of money on social media, because he'll do something like do a 45-minute talk somewhere, and then he'll cut it into, you'll have the full talk on YouTube, parts of it with like the on-screen text on Facebook, like Twitter videos of just like key moments, and then Instagram, and like he'll have just every platform. He has turned that piece of content into something that works for that platform with his team. So me and Tom were like, we want to get in on that. So we were workshopping that for a while, but then I just kind of like did the video a day in August because I was like, I don't have time to think about all this shit. Like it was another thing that would have been a huge project that took lots of planning and took a long time to get off the ground, and we were just like, we don't have time for that. I have to make a lot of money right now. Video day and every day in August paid off. I made a lot of money at the end of the month. when like the thing was complete. You know, a lot of people upped their patronage, so that was cool. And that was where I started to feel comfortable again. Like, that was where I finally was making enough money that I was like, this can turn around. Like, I'm making enough now that our expenditure on top of the rent is not leaving me at a deficit anymore, which it was up to that point. So, during the month of August, me and Tom also came up with the idea for I Am Games. And the conceit of this was that I perceived Tom as much bigger of a gamer than me. Because he has a tendency to talk about new releases, to follow the news, to kind of know what's going on. He's making a game. He was planning to buy the Spider-Man game that was coming out, which I have no interest in because it's just some blockbuster game from my perspective, right? So, like, I see Tom as a guy who is good at games because he plays, like, Devil May Cry and shit, not realizing that he doesn't even play it on the highest difficulty. He just plays on normal mode over and over and over again. But, like, I perceive him as, like, a pretty good gamer. And I know that I have no credibility as a gamer. Gamers hate me. And it's really hard to talk about video games without being, like... They're very, like... you have to, like, prove your worth. You know, you have to be, like, not only skilled, but you have to be, like, really detailed. And if you're going to criticize a game, you have to really fucking phrase it carefully.
Be a woman.
Yeah, that too. But you better phrase your criticisms very carefully, or else they're not going to be accepted. So, my idea was, because Tom was working on... He was working on game design, he's working on 3D modeling. He does not have time to be a YouTuber. That's why he's not doing it. Like, he was making money when he was a YouTuber before, but he just hated it. Like, he hates doing that job, so he quit doing that job, and, you know, why would he come back to that, you know? Although he is somebody who likes to work on group projects. He's more enthusiastic about something if it's not exclusively his.
Water. Oh, God.
So...
The 3-hour-long vlog.
Yeah. Ow.
Oh, sorry.
Jeez.
I'm sorry.
Go for it. Where are you going?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you.
So Tom, I'm like, okay, the conceit of this show is that I wanted to get into live streaming, and Digibro vs. Everybody had been a great live stream show, and like it was pulling crazy numbers for a new live stream show. I didn't even understand at the time because I don't watch Twitch. I don't know anything about Twitch. I didn't realize that having like 1,000 viewers every show is quite impressive. But we'd only done a few of them. I think we did like 10 total. And so it wasn't enough for me to become an affiliate or a partner because I just hadn't streamed enough yet. But riding off of that, me and Tom started streaming together, and we changed all the branding to I Am Games, which is just a name that I thought was fucking hilarious. And we had put it on a t-shirt because I just thought it would be a funny t-shirt. And before we even streamed or made any videos, the first thing we did was make the t-shirt and take a picture of us wearing it. And because Tom just happened to have 10 blank shirts on hand, we just printed 10 I Am Games shirts, and people bought all of them. We sold all the shirts right away, so we were like, fuck, this branding must really work because people are buying these shirts up because they must think it's as funny as I do. The reality is people just wanted to buy a shirt from us. Like, I think people knew that we were individually making them and sending them, because as soon as we put it on Spreadshirt, nobody gave a shit, or Teespring, whatever the hell it was. I think it's Spreadshirt.
Yeah, because it's detached. It's like, you want to do business with the people you care about. You're like, oh, I want to buy this shirt from them because that's really dope.
I think people thought it was funnier because they just thought it was a weird meme that we had come up with, and they wanted to buy it from us.
But I love that shirt. I wear my I Am Games shirt, like, often.
Well, so
I found it.
The plan with I Am Games was to
just in my
basically build a brand. It was going to be... it started as a t-shirt, and then it became a Twitch stream, and the idea is that Tom would play the game and I would read the chat, and I would watch him play the game, get a sense of it, have a conversation with him about it, and then I would write an analysis video and he would voice it. And this worked really well the first time.
You play the game and I brag about how much money this dumb scheme is giving us.
Right.
That was the first couple of streams.
It was, dude, it was so good at first,
Yeah.
and I think the idea would have worked if it weren't for the fact that we were completely lucky that Spider-Man had come out.
Yeah.
Because the first game we do is the Spider-Man game for PS4, which Tom was excited about, and it's by Insomniac. They make great games. Like, it's a good ass game, but I hate free roaming games. So like, I didn't expect to like this game at all. I wouldn't have played it. So it's the exact perfect storm of elements of what this show is supposed to be. Tom plays a game, he enjoys it, beats it in just a couple streams. I fucking write an analysis video about whatever the points were, have him voice it, came out great. Got like 10,000 views for the first video on the channel, not even really advertising it, you know. I put an ad for it at the end of my What is Deep video, which directed a little bit more there. But like, it seemed like it just fucking worked like magic. And I did 2 videos out of it too, because I figured, what the hell, let's make it like let's not just do 1 video per game, let's like find different angles, make as much out of this as we can. And it just seemed like a really cool idea, and people were vibing with it.
The red flag should have came with Mega Man.
No, it should have came with Red Dead Redemption, which was the very next thing.
Oh yeah, well, you're right.
Because the first game we played was Fable. Because before, I didn't actually start making videos for I Am Games until September, because I just didn't have time. I was like, I'm doing a video a day for all of August. And when we did our initial streams, it would be at like 2 to 4 in the morning, because I had been working all day, and then we would decompress by streaming Fable. Yeah. And our original idea was to launch the channel with a multi-part Fable retrospective.
You're
like
right.
some big-ass Fable video.
I forgot about that. I forgot about the origins.
Because, okay, I've been doing YouTube for a long time. I know that there are several ways to make a video go viral. The biggest way is to talk about something relevant, in the heat of its relevancy, in a way that is attention-grabbing. Like, you could do just review, but if you have like a really incendiary or unique opinion, it will draw way more attention. It also helps to already be an established channel, and in the world of video game criticism, there's a ton of competition for talking about new games. So the more likely way to get big is to do a gigantic video on a classic game or a retrospective on a classic series, or just like bring some new knowledge to the table about something old. And that's how a lot of channels get their start. So my initial thought is, nobody's done a huge retrospective on Fable, big famous game series, a lot of people have contentious opinions about it. It would be perfect, you know? Like, if Noah Caldwell-Gervais did this video, it would have 400,000 views, you know? But, so we started working on it, but Fable's really long. And we found out that Red Dead Redemption 2 was coming out, so we were like, oh, Red Dead Redemption's supposed to be a classic, let's go do that. This is where the red flags came up, because we start playing Red Dead Redemption. Tom absolutely hates it. And he hates it because it has all the hallmarks of the modern games that both of us hate. I didn't know he hated those things. I didn't know Tom hated modern games like I do, that he was going to hate the controls, hate the free roaming elements, hate that it was like not like cathartic to play, hate cutscenes. You know, and I'm like, oh, well, you're just like me. Well, then it doesn't help me to watch you play the game.
Wait, I fucking forgot you are a 30-year-old boomer.
So Red Dead Redemption was a red flag, but then we did Spider-Man, and it all worked out beautifully. Well, then we're put into a position of, there's no new games coming out that we want to play. We don't want to play Red Dead 2. And also, there's a ton of overhead for this show, because we had to replace half the parts in the fucking streaming PC to make that work out well. We had to do all this setup. We spent like hundreds of dollars on the setup. Each game is $60, so unless you can make back that $60, you're operating at a deficit. And there's no way you're making back $60 on a video with 10,000 views on a channel that's not even monetized yet, and a Twitch stream that has just become an affiliate and nobody watches.
Recoup the cost of at least Spider-Man and
I think at this point we've probably recouped all the costs of I Am Games, but we haven't made much profit beyond that. So yeah, it was Well, yeah. So these early times, well, after Spider-Man, we were like, well, let's do an older game, I guess. And we end up stumbling on Shinobi, which is just a game that Tom loved and hadn't gotten enough attention. And that video was even more successful than the Spider-Man one because it was posted on some kind of Reddit and people liked it a lot. So we were like, all right, here's another potential market. Just like, hyping up forgotten gems. And so this is where we come up with the idea of like, okay, we could do Time Splitters, we could do Tenchu, we could do... So we start coming up with all these games. Well, the problem is that most of them turn out to suck. Most of these games they don't hold up nearly as well as Shinobi, or like most of the reason to enjoy them is nostalgia, or like we just don't care. We played Metal Arms and that turned out to suck balls. And like, so, and every time we have a failure, that's a whole, we only stream twice a week for 2 hours. So if we don't like the game, it basically just gets swapped out and we move on to the next thing. So we keep switching games all the time, never getting to the end of one until like a new game comes out. And like we did Mega Man, and that was, yeah, like you said, that should have been the second sign, which is that we both sucked at Mega Man.
Bad at Mega Man.
And we hated it. We hated the fucking game. We hated playing it, and we struggled. I managed to get 2 videos out of it still, but they're both like kind of weird angles to take on the game that, again, nobody wants to hear an angle they don't relate to, because the only people who gave a fuck about Mega Man are Mega Man fans. Nobody else was going to play it. So us being not fans and not enjoying it, it got us nowhere, and like, that's how it was for a lot of the games we were doing. So, relative to our time in this place, August was the month of a video every day. September was the day I was trying to launch, or the month I was trying to launch I Am Games, and I had passed some scripts to Devu, like, that I had written back in July. The Tsundere one I had written in July and just held on to, never released. Darling in the Franxx was originally going to be edited by you. I ended up giving that to Devu as well. So both of those had been written way beforehand. They came out that month. Both were really successful. Like, the August videos, because of Dear Crunchyroll Stop getting 1 million views, which was all your idea.
Thank you. Even if I didn't edit that Darling in the Franxx video, at least I gave you a
Dear Crunchyroll Stop blowing up was what made that whole month worth it, and it had a rippling effect, because most of the videos up to that point were not getting really any views. They were all getting like under 50K. When that video came out, it not only made the next few also huge, but it also retroactively drew more attention to some of the other videos. And then the ones that I did in September...
back into your channel.
Yeah, the Shinsekai Yori video got bigger. How They Marketed eventually broke 100K. Why Subs Are Bad broke, is pretty big. So like, there's a bunch of like 300K videos from this era, which is big numbers for me. Like, that was what I was expecting at my height, So... yeah, life was coming back to the channel, so September was kind of an easy ride. I tossed some scripts to Vu's way and started working on I Am Games. I was also working on another light novel. I was doing all kinds of shit, just trying to make things work out. We roll into October. This is where I did a lot of I Am Games work. Seemed like it was kind of working, but not exactly. And I just kept changing gears because anytime something didn't work, I'd go, well, all right, let's see if this will work instead. Let's see if this will work. And eventually I landed on the idea of doing the Tales of retrospective. So, like, this, and simultaneously, at the very start of September was when, at the end of September was when Steins Gate Zero had ended. And so I was in the mentality that what people wanted, like, going by the responses I was getting from people about what they wanted from my content, it seemed like people just wanted long videos. They just wanted long analysis videos. They didn't care about, like, the fancy editing. They don't care necessarily even what it's about. They just wanted to be a show they've heard of and a long analysis video. So that was what my mentality became. It's just, fuck it, we'll just do long videos. So Steins Gate Zero, obviously a big deal, because Steins Gate was a big deal. I hated it. Let's make a long video bitching about it. I liked the script, sent it to Devu. And I was like, he's just going to do this for all of October. That's the plan. He'll do that. I'll work on I Am Games. So 4 videos come out that month. All of them Steins Gate 0. None of them pull crazy numbers. Why? Because generally people like Steins Gate 0 and nobody wants to hear me bitch about it. Don't know why. People don't seem that interested. It's not working out the same way. But, you know, it's getting enough views. I'm not losing patrons. I'm, if anything, gaining still. So I'm, like, pouring a lot more energy into I Am Games. Well, November rolls around, and I'm like, alright, doing all these random games isn't working. We gotta try to launch this channel into, like, because what we were doing was still a good idea. It just seemed like the channel needed to get a foot in first. It seemed like it needed to have an initial viewer base, and then they would start watching all these other videos, you know? So I was like, how do we make a splash? Well, I have a long history with the Tales of series. It would be fun to do. So I spent like 2 weeks playing through and making a video about Tales of Fantasia in November. And this is when weed finally got legalized, or finally became for sale. So we bought a bunch of weed. I spent a lot of time playing Tales of. And we went back to Rochester for Thanksgiving as well in this month.
Gotta get that Thanksgiving lasagna.
So,
you know what I mean?
So my plan becomes, because the Steins Gate videos, they play out over the month of October, 1 a week.
I'm getting mega tired. If I pass out, will you kill me?
You can pass out. I'll keep telling the story.
I might.
So Steins Gate's coming out simultaneously. I also start the new season of Sword Art Online started up, and so I decided I would do weekly meme videos about that. Those didn't really get that much attention either. Like, I'm thinking SAO's my cash cow. I can just make fun of it every week in unique and fun ways, so the videos will still seem like they're not like low effort cash grabs. They have thought put into them. Each one is totally different from the last, so that'll be fun and engaging, not really pulling views. So those are the 2 video series I'm doing in October. Not really working. I Am Games, not really working. Nothing's really working. I had all these ideas in August about like making all these changes to my Patreon, creating a forum and doing all this weird shit. None of that really panned out. So October is just like, fuck. I don't remember if it was October or November that the heating oil thing happened.
It was November.
So, November.
I remember I was like, we don't need heating oil until Thanksgiving, because they don't put it on in my college until Thanksgiving. I was like being an asshole about it.
So, it starts to get cold. And as we've mentioned, this house has no central cooling or heat. Now, when we moved into this place, both on our initial viewing of it and when we moved in, our landlady had told us that heating oil would cost about $100 3 times a year. $300 a year seems reasonable to me. I've never worked with heating oil, never had an oil heater. I was terrified of turning this thing on. Like, I didn't want to turn it on until we absolutely had to, because I just didn't know how it works or what was going to happen. We had been told that if it was depleted all the way, if we ran out of heating oil, then air could get in the pipes, so it would need to, we'd have to have somebody fix that. But, as far as we knew, we had not turned on the heating oil once. We never used the heater the whole time we lived here. Well, one day, suddenly, there's no hot water when we try to take a shower.
No, we filled the tank. We had hot water until we put the oil in.
No. This is how we found out we were out of oil, is that we had no hot water. The no hot water lasted for days. We didn't know. We didn't know we needed the oil.
Right.
No, this is what happened, I promise you. We tried to take a shower, and there was no hot water, and we didn't understand why. And then we contacted the landlady or something, and we found out that the hot water was tied to the oil.
No, I think it was that we got the oil refilled because we looked at the oil and it was really low. So we got it filled.
No, I never looked at the oil. She had showed when we moved in. She showed it to me, and it was 3/4.
And she said we had a month.
Or no, it had one. It was 1/4. And I assumed she meant a month of continuous airtime. Like, we had no idea we were using the oil at all, so there's no reason we would have thought that we were running low.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that we got it filled, and then when you got it filled,
it would have literally had to happen at the same time, which seems fucking impossible.
Yeah.
And I still don't understand it, because, okay, so when we moved in, there was 1/4 of a tank of oil, and we never turned on the heat. We're deciding we're finally going to turn it on in November because it had gotten really cold. And so we called the guy to fill up the tank, and then he comes and does that. We go to take a shower, and it's not working. And so we have them come to look at it, and the guy says there must be air in the pipes, meaning that we had depleted the heating oil. But we had not known that it was connected to the hot water in the first place. Nobody had told us that. So the only way this could have happened is if literally that day we had depleted the last of the fucking oil right before they came to fill it up. And because it had been depleted, there had been air in the pipes, and therefore this problem, which seems impossible. So the guy comes back, and he lets air out of the pipes, and then fucks off. We're like sick. We go to try to use the shower, still no hot water. Something else must be wrong. We call the landlady and tell her this, and yeah, it takes us, like, that's why we didn't have it for days, because it took days for her to get a guy over here. A guy comes and just does the same thing the guy had done. It still was just full of air. He just hadn't let it all out. But because our landlady chalked this up to our improper use of the system, she made us pay the $120 repair bill on something that another guy had already tried to do and just done wrong. And this is after we had paid for oil, finding out it was $700. And they didn't tell us how much it would cost. I just said, I want you to fill the tank, and then after they filled it, they told us it was $700. And so,
because there's no real way to know how much the oil is going to cost, because every year it's different.
Yeah.
It'll be a little bit higher or lower, and we didn't really know how big the tank was, or anything. You're just kind of like
just thinking about this.
Like, well, we need it filled. Let's just, like, hopefully it's not too bad. Let's just get it done because we need to get it done.
We were told it'd be $100 3 times a year! Should have asked more questions. But we would have had to do it either way because we need it for the hot water.
Yeah.
So, like, unbeknownst to us, we need heating oil. No one told us that at any point. So, that was when I said, we can't live here anymore. Like, because if it's $700 3 times a year, that's a huge fucking difference from $100 3 times a year. It's an order of magnitude different.
Yeah. You can say that again.
So that was when we entered the we need to get the fuck out of here death spiral. And from that point forward, this no longer felt like our house. Because we knew we were going to leave. Like, there was no reason to do anything to it. And, like, I hadn't even been able to afford to yet. Like, we still hadn't built a set. We still hadn't furnished it, really. We hadn't added posters or anything like that. The only thing we'd added was getting a treadmill from Tom's sister. Which was a great thing.
It's been the best thing we've done to this house.
Yeah. But that's it. So the house is still this barren, ugly, undesigned place that we now don't even want to do anything to because we know we're not going to stay longer than we have to. And we were really hoping we could leave in, like, March. We were like, we need to get out of here as fast as possible. We run it by the landlady, and she's like, well, your lease is for a year. So unless you can find me a new tenant, I'm not letting you leave. And we're like, well, where the fuck are we going to find a tenant who would
want to live
would fucking want to live here, right? So,
You can't do that to another person.
no.
Even we are not that cruel.
So the heating oil was kind of like, that was where like the depression spiral began. And that month I did the Tales of video, which initially at least underperformed. It eventually reached the arbitrary number that I had set that I would continue the series, but barely. And like, it wasn't enough to launch the channel. And part of it's just because while the Tales of games are popular, only really the newer ones are, like Symphonia, Berseria, and like a couple of
the
others.
ones that came out in the U.S.
Fantasia came out in the U.S. on the Game Boy, but
it's not the same.
It wasn't a huge release. So
it's not the same.
Yeah, so like it wasn't a huge deal, which I knew it was gonna start off slow and that it would get more popular as I got to Symphonia, but like it just wasn't a strong enough reception for me to feel like I could play another week-long game and then write another 45-minute video that takes forever to edit, you know? Mm-hmm. And then I started working on the Log Horizon series because we rewatched the show just arbitrarily and I really loved it and I started writing about it. So I wrote a few parts of that. Going into... did those start coming out in December?
Yeah.
What the hell is coming out in November?
I don't know. I remember we watched it in October because we watched it before we watched.
Okay, then those are coming out in November then.
Yeah, you're right.
So I did this. So I must be thinking. Tales of must have been October too then.
I don't know. Could it possibly?
Yes, it had. Okay, it must have been that the Tales of video came out in October, the first half of October. Then I wrote a bunch of parts of Log Horizon. Those started coming out in November, and then in November I was continuing to work on that. Because I stopped working on I Am Games for a little while. After Tales of, I was like, this is not working. And like, we were still streaming and we were making some money off the streams, but we were bouncing from game to game still, trying to figure out what we wanted to play. And I took a break from that to work on the main channel and After Dark shit. And then when November rolled around is when I made a huge change to the Patreon into what it currently is with the care packs and the rant hole and all that shit, which has worked out. That's been the best decision I've fucking made since living here. Because video every day in August, as a stunt, gained me some patrons and attention and a couple hit videos. Just selling things to people has been way more lucrative and way easier to do and by far the best thing, especially when, by this point, we knew we were going to move. So I'm like trying to put away money. You know, I'm like, I gotta get my taxes paid. I gotta get money saved up for the move. I want to have as much money in my bank as fucking possible. Let's roll this out. So this became like the money era, right? But then December rolled around and we bought a whole lot of weed and I decided to do GameCube games. And I spent most of December making GameCube Forever videos, which did not go anywhere. I made 3 of them and then went, well, nobody gives a shit about this. We went to Rochester for like a week for Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
That was fun. Had tons of ideas. My mind relaxed and became better. January. That's when the next dramatic encounter with our landlady happened.
Oh, yeah. The fucking leaves.
So...
The fucking leaves!
So, at the time... Before winter began, our landlady had told us that she had realized that she had not included in our lease any instructions for us to rake the leaves or shovel the snow. And that she was meant to be responsible for these things. Because she had already had our neighbor mowing our lawn all summer. So she didn't realize she was going to be responsible for these things. And she's like, well... if I were to, which I'm pretty sure she can't do this, because it's probably illegal, because we signed a lease saying that we would pay a certain amount every month all year. But she said, if I were to add on this service, I would have to raise the rent, or you can just do it yourselves. And I went, we'll just do it ourselves. By which I meant we're not going to do it because I don't care.
Yeah, if you care about it, you have somebody do it, but
Right.
we're not going to fucking do it because we didn't sign the lease, and you're not going to charge us more to have somebody do it.
No, not gonna happen.
Like, if we agreed that we would do all the yard
Which
work...
my response should have been, fuck you, we signed a lease that says we're paying this much, you can't even threaten this, you come do the leaves.
Yeah.
Well, so we just didn't do it. We were like, fuck it, I don't care, right? Like, we kind of thought about doing it a few times, but we didn't.
It's one thing if you make an agreement with your landlord before you move in, or you say, like, hey, if I do all the services myself, like, can we lower the rent?
Yeah.
But, like, in the state of Massachusetts, like, your landlord's supposed to do that for you.
So January rolls around, and the landlady sends us an addendum to the rent. And we know that, because she's friends with our neighbors, and we're pretty sure that they relay information to her
they've been,
about
like,
us.
spying on us. They, like, they knew that Tom was staying with us and all
It's
this.
kind of obvious. But, like, because she asked us if we were subleasing, and I was like, hey, Tom's not paying any money to live here. That's, like, people are always like, you don't charge him? I'm like, well, technically I wouldn't be allowed to. But, so, in January, she sends us an addendum to the lease stating that we will be responsible for cleaning up all the leaves by December 1st. Which I'm like, oh, we're moving away anyways. Sign that thing, right? Well, then she's like, we're coming by.
Told you not to sign it.
We're coming over on, like, February something to, like, fix whatever is wrong with the house, which they were supposed to do on Thanksgiving. They were supposed to come and fix our fucking garbage disposal, which hadn't worked the whole time. And they had not done that, so it's been months. And they're finally going to come do that. And they had to fix the roof.
Fix the stove.
It turned out there was a horrible leak in here that could have fucking destroyed Tom's entire setup.
When we moved into the house, there was a terrible leak that they, eventually got fixed in
Everything
July.
that they did way later than they said they were going to do.
The side of the house was completely overgrown, and they're like, yeah, we'll take care of it, like, real soon, and it
took,
was,
like, 2 months.
Yeah.
So, they're like, we're gonna come by, can you, like, send us pictures of the lawn? Like, have you raked the leaves? And we're like...
No. You gotta rake the leaves.
So we're like, you know what? We said we would do it, verbally, at least. Let's give it an effort. So we spend like 6 hours raking leaves into bags. We do most of it, and then at some point we fill up all the bags that we bought, and we're just like, fuck this, right?
If she wants it to be professionally done,
she can do it herself.
Yeah.
So we do it to an extent.
To an extent,
it took all fucking day, and it broke my back. So I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, we have no obligation to this because this thing we signed is for next year, right? She comes by on the day and goes around and takes pictures
of every
single spot
fucking leaf.
that there are still leaves, and is like, oh, you haven't picked up all these places. If you guys don't do it, we're gonna have to pay for somebody to do it and take it out of your safety deposit. And I was like, oh, whoa. So then she then sends us another lease addendum saying that we will take care of snow as it appears.
Yeah, an hour after it appears.
We do not sign this one.
But what she wants is like a pathway from the backyard, all of the driveway, the front yard, and you need to shovel an hour after it snows. You have to keep up with the snow. Yada, yada, yada. It's like...
So... And
we'll shovel as much as we fucking need to shovel.
Yeah.
Like, we're not gonna go out of our way to shovel the whole driveway if we only use a little bit of it.
On top of all this...
Our driveway's huge.
So, a couple months after moving in, the stove broke.
Oh my gosh. Stop.
It never ends. The stove broke, and it had happened, like, a day and a half after... we had accidentally left it on.
The stove fucking broke immediately after we moved in.
Yeah, it was not long.
The stove did not last very long because it's a cheap, shitty stove.
They got the cheapest stove that you possibly can get. And she was all bragging about, oh, it's a new stove when we first moved in. The cheapest stove that's on the market. And also, this house has fucked up electrical wiring that we didn't understand until way later, because most of the house is on the same fucking circuit. So, like, literally the bedroom, the living room, the entire office, and half the kitchen are on one circuit. So if you plug in enough shit, power goes out, you gotta flip the circuit. And the bathroom. Because the most common way this happens is if you turn on both the fan and the heater in the bathroom, you shut down the house. Or if you plug in, like, the can opener or whatever. So, in response to this, we have had to... There's one outlet in the kitchen that is not on that circuit. And we have a table next to that outlet, and we have just all of our appliances piled up, and we just swap them out when we need to use them. So that
what do we have on top of each other? We have the microwave. On top of that is the deep fryer. Next to
toaster
the toaster.
Oven. Toaster and
out.
Toaster oven.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the toaster oven.
The slow cooker. And the not
can
slow
opener.
cooker, but can opener.
The
pressure cooker.
Pot. Yeah.
All of
rotating
that
all of these
is rotated because otherwise my computer goes out, the TVs go out, everything goes out. Except for this room. Tom was in luck. He's not on the circuit. So, so why this stove broke could be because it was on overnight, could be because the house is just fucked in general, could be because it's a cheap piece of shit, or all three. Whatever the case.
My vote is all three.
The stove broke, so I called Sears and had a guy come out to look at it. Now, it just so happened that the day this guy came out to look at it was the same day that the landlady and her husband had come to look at the overgrown side of the house because they were getting ready to fix that. So they ask me, what's up with the Sears truck? And I say, well, the oven broke because we left it on overnight, and they're here to fix it. Because I'm thinking that this is about to happen, that they're fixing it right now. I'm just going to pay like $100 or whatever. This will be over with. And when I say, as soon as I said, because we left it on overnight, both of them went, oh, you left it on. And I went, I fucked up. Yep. I immediately knew I had fucked up by admitting that.
Yep. So
I go back inside.
That's the only phrase they know in English.
Yeah. I go back inside.
Oh, you did it. You take care of it.
And oven guy, it's not racist, by the way. She really sounds like that.
It's not racist to do an accent. Since when was that racist?
No.
Fucking...
The oven guy is like, okay, well, it just so happens that the panel has shorted. And the panel is the most expensive part, would cost you like $350 to replace, and the service would be $300. And I was like, how much does the stove cost? Like $600. Well, so immediately I'm like, well, we're not fixing it. I had to pay $100 just for that, just for him to get that information. So what we had done is, initially we were just going to buy a cheaper stove, but eventually we just bought a toaster oven. Because I was talking about this thing having happened in my Discord, and this one guy in there, Kaisamir, who lives in Japan, is like, oh, over here in Japan, they don't even use ovens. Most houses just have toaster ovens. I start doing all this research, realize toaster ovens can literally do everything an oven can do. They're just smaller, and run on electricity. And it saves you a lot of money on electricity, apparently, to use it. So I was just like, well, fuck, we don't cook that much shit in the oven. Let's get a toaster oven. Served us perfectly fine. Yeah. We never replaced the fucking oven.
Only thing is if you're making, like, cookies or anything, baked goods kind of suck in the toaster oven. Yeah. Because you have to, like, account for the fact that you're using a toaster oven.
Yeah.
And never figured out the sweet spot. But that's okay. I don't really make cookies that often.
No. So January rolls around. We've been up, like, all night. We feel like shit. She comes over. She takes all these fucking pictures of the leaves. Fixes the garbage disposal,
yeah.
but she had to fucking...
Why stay up all night?
I don't remember. But she had to, like, take, like, an hour to fucking fix the garbage. Like, we had to, like, wait around with them in our house. Like, we're starving because we wanted to go out to eat, and, like, we don't realize how long this is going to take. And they go out to buy a new garbage disposal and are gone for, like, an hour, and then it takes another hour to fix it. And then So, and this is her dad who's doing the repairs, right? And then he looks at the oven only to come to the same conclusion we already heard, that the panel is shorted. No shit. And she's like, well, before you guys move, you're going to have to replace the oven. So eventually we did that last week.
It was on sale. We got it for $500, and then the delivery was only $50, and they took the old one.
Could have been a lot worse, but yeah, we finally got the new one. But like, so this whole time I should have just replaced it right away, because then we would have had an oven. Although just as likely it would have broke again.
I'm afraid to use it.
Yeah, so
I'm not fucking like risking it because our shit's still plugged in. Like.
So, and
you could just, it's like a ticking time bomb for the next people who move in.
And
like,
while she was there in January was
whatever.
when we floated the idea of us leaving in March, and she basically gave us a hard no. So that was like the most defeated day of my whole life. It was like, oh yeah, you're not moving out till May, and you need to replace the stove, and you didn't do a good enough job on the leaves. And then when she sent us the snow addendum, she had like emailed, like, I had enough time. This is something I'm trying to fix about myself, is that I don't get angry enough in the moment. I get angry later. And then I realize the magical thing I could have said at the time that might have changed the situation. Like the amount of screaming and strangling I could have done.
You from stewing on it, which is the worst, because it makes you feel like shit.
Well, and I'm also just afraid of getting evicted, because like I don't want to piss her off and then she'd be like, oh well, then you don't get to live here anymore. You know, like that's what makes landlords so fucking terrifying, is that like they have the power to just evict you, and they try to do right by you by the contract, but like if they decide that you've like, it's written in the lease that like basically if they decide within a reasonable doubt that you're being a hassle, they can fucking get rid of you.
Yeah, and what are you gonna do? Get a lawyer? Like that's just behave,
spend all this money to fucking go to court. So that's why it's so fucking terrifying. But like at the same time, I know there's a lot of things I could say to change some of these situations. So that's what I did when finally she sent an email like asking about the snow thing, and I sent a very strongly worded response that was like, it would obviously be ridiculous to expect us to do the leaves when we signed that addendum in January about getting it done by December 1st, and it was supposed to be your responsibility to begin with. You know, like, we'll replace the stove even though it's possible that it was an electrical issue and your house has electrical issues, and, like, just hitting her with all this stuff. Didn't hear back from her until April after that. Like, that email...
Didn't hear back from her until we
that email
had
destroyed
to talk
her.
to her again. Yeah.
Right. So at that point...
Destroyed her a little too hard.
A little too hard, maybe. So through January and February, I had been mostly focused, I think, on main channel videos and just, like, doing the care packs, doing the rant vlogs. Oh, and this is when we watched every anime that exists.
Yes.
And I decided I wanted to do another big list video, and like Finish or Fail is a really popular, like, it doesn't get crazy view counts, but the people who watch it really like it, and it keeps me talking about anime, and it keeps me up to date on anime, because I had reached a point where I was like, I don't know what's going on with
It's
anime
a win-win.
anymore.
It's not a high-effort show.
Like, it's hard to be an anime YouTuber if you're not watching anything current, because all anybody gives a shit about is the current stuff, you know? So, like, 2017... or 2018, like, throughout the year, I had not been keeping up with shit, so we were like, let's get caught up, and then in 2019, we'll stay caught up, you know? Which we would be doing Finish or Fail, if not for the fact that we're hustling to move
that's
right
why,
now.
I mean, we're doing seasonal impressions, so as soon as we move, we can finish off the last season, and then we'll finish that, and the other season will still be going on. Like...
We'll have a little window of time.
Yeah.
But, and Finish or Fail is not so hard once you've done seasonal impressions, because there's only like 6 shows that you actually have to finish. But people are really dying for my Mob Psycho 2 thoughts, and I gotta finish the fucking show. So anyway, God fucking damn, this whole story is just so exhausting to tell. So yeah, we spent basically all of like February and like starting late January and then through all of February just marathoning anime. It was just nonstop.
I'd wake up, work out,
and then we'd start marathoning
just start
shows.
watching anime.
So it was basically
Didn't end.
wall to wall, finish or fail, nothing else until I did the top 100 or top 15 of the year list, and then we just bounced right from that into seasonal impressions, and like just kept the ball rolling because we had gotten used. Like we did it for so long that it just became our lifestyle. Like it became hard to not do.
Yeah.
Because we would literally be sitting around like, well, what do we fucking do? Like,
there's nothing to watch.
I've spent a straight month and a half doing nothing but marathoning anime, and now we suddenly have time? Like, what are you talking about? And then I also started getting back into IM Games for a little bit because we were taking a trip. What was the last trip we took to... Because we took a trip in March,
LA?
right? Oh, of course, the LA trip. So, I think it was in February when we realized Virginia Beach was the answer.
Yes.
Because...
And another 2 a.m. brain blast.
Yeah, so this whole time that we are planning to move, the big question is where. And, like, this was already, as of, like, I forgot about fucking Radcon 3.33 is also in January.
Oh, yeah.
So, leading up to that, like, in December...
Oh, my God.
So, in December, we were basically talking about... Because one of the possibilities was to stay in Boston or stay in Massachusetts or somewhere nearby so that PCP HQ could still happen. But we were like, I don't know how important this is because Munchie and Ben being nearby is not really helpful for me. Tom will be with us no matter what if he decides to come with us wherever we're going. And Nate had said that he didn't care where it was. He was like, I'll go anywhere. I have no attachment. I'll go wherever makes the most sense. Right? So we're like, okay, this is when you became Zillow Jesus. Where you had Zillow literally emailing you every single time a house was listed for rent anywhere in the state of Massachusetts. What we quickly realized is there's nowhere in the state that's cheap.
I mean, if you go out west, you're going to find more stuff. You might even find some stuff that's under $2K a month.
There's
but it's going to be
cheap.
not anywhere you want to live. It's going to be
No.
in the fucking boonies.
Like,
the closest thing to you is going to be the weed shop.
At the price range that we were looking for, the closest things we could find were hours out from Boston. And, like, while it would be possible for, like, those guys to come out there and stuff, like, we'd still have the PCP guys, like, relatively nearby. It was just, like, this isn't worth it for us. Like, it's... And this isn't happening for a while. Like, Nate's not even moving till summertime.
The other possibility was, like, we could all, go in on a big-ass house together.
Nobody wanted to do that.
Nobody wanted to do that. I mean, it's the only thing that made sense.
Yeah.
Like, honestly.
It was just like, this place is so fucking expensive. Why would we do it here? Why here, other than that Ben and Munchie want to be here? Because Tom hates Boston. Ben and Munchie want to be here, and Nate low-key wants to be here.
It'd be the most convenient and makes the most sense for him to try to do something.
But it's just so fucking expensive, and it's like the venture we're trying to do here is a space-reliant venture. We need to have space to film. If we want to get a studio space, that's extra cost. Like, it's way too expensive. Why do it here? And also, I fucking hate it here. It's humid all summer. It snows all winter. It's miserably cold. The houses are all 100 years old, and they all have oil heat. Because even out west, it was all oil heat houses that you were finding. So that's... you gotta account for that in the rent, Like, so... It's like, this place is just crazy expensive and crazy shitty, and I'm bored of Boston the city because we've exhausted the novelty of it already. So why the fuck do it here? So we were looking into all these options. We were talking about possibly going to Tulsa, Oklahoma, because you have family out there, and it's
it was just
real
an
cheap to
idea
live.
Of a place that, like, there are places that we're not thinking about that space is widely available, and you can get a place. You can get a big place for $1,000 a month.
Yeah, I'm gonna
like I had all the data, and there made no sense for us to try to stay in Boston, and like. We were trying to work out other scenarios, like what would it be like if we moved to Providence in Rhode Island, or what if, like, they tried to do this, or we all tried to move into a place
But
together.
I really wanted to get out of the snow. After 2 years of living in the snow, I fucking hate living in the snow. It makes your whole life way more inconvenient and way worse. And
you have to live with seasonal depression.
People who are up here are just used to it and they don't think about it, but it's you don't have to live this way.
No.
You don't have to dig your car out half the year.
There's help for you,
right.
young soul.
So, like, I'm looking at it and I'm like, this place fucking sucks. But the biggest problem is, so, in the time that we've been here, early on into us living here, my parents moved to LA because my mom found her real dad. That's a whole story. And they moved out with him to Huntington Beach in California, outside LA. Pretty expensive city. Gorgeous, perfect, amazing weather all year round. It's a great fucking place. We went to visit and it was amazing. But
cool for the homeless.
Not only is it really expensive, and a lot of it, like, there are places that we could potentially afford in parts of it, but, like, you know, not necessarily in the nicest parts of it. And more importantly, we'd have to cross the fucking country, which we have no desire to do.
I have no desire to live in California. Like, yeah, the weather's nice, but I don't give a fuck. Like,
the weather is really good, though.
The weather in Virginia Beach is miles better than anything I know.
Well, good. You'll be able to enjoy it.
I don't care that much about the weather.
I do.
I just want to have proper ventilation in our home.
Well, yeah, that's a big part too. Like, again, the fact that it's oil heat everywhere in Massachusetts is a huge fucking problem. So our thoughts were Tulsa. The Midwest is generally cheap. Like, you can live in the heart of the city in a single family home for like $1,000 a month in Tulsa and in Austin, Texas. Which Austin is also an exciting prospect because it's a big film city. It's a growing place. Like,
it's still really scary to move somewhere where
that's
you
know
no one.
In Tulsa, you have some family there, but otherwise, your family's in Rochester. My parents are in LA. My brothers are in Virginia. If we move into the middle of the country, we're far away from anybody we really know. The closest thing we have is your extended family. And, if we move to Austin, nobody.
Yeah, I've never been there.
And so
we were... vouch.
Well, that's the thing. We were going to travel to these places and, check each one out, see how it is. Maybe Austin, maybe Tulsa, maybe LA if my parents can really hard sell me and, try to make a deal with me or something. Well, then we have this moment where you're like, what about Virginia Beach? And I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure it's expensive to live in Virginia Beach. We look up the housing prices. It's not expensive to live in Virginia Beach. It's a little bit
more expensive than Oklahoma, but I mean, you can find a place that you need.
It's a city I know.
Yeah.
And as soon as...
God's houses.
The thing is that I never even considered it. It's so weird. Because I love Virginia Beach. I've always liked it. I used to... a lot of people have said, that I was, ragging on Virginia Beach. But if you really go back and listen to a lot of my content, I used to brag about the city all the fucking time. I used to always talk about how, Forbes had called it, the best city to live in. I wrote all these albums about it. I wrote magazines about it. At a time when I was hanging out with my friends in Virginia Beach, I loved it there. When I was alone in Virginia Beach, I hated it there. And part of it was that I didn't like driving back then, and my family lived way the fuck on the outskirts of the city. So it was 15, 20-minute drive to get anywhere. And nowadays I don't give a shit about driving that much. I'll drive that much first thing in the morning. I don't care. So, and now I have somebody to go there with. So, it just, because of the fact that I was so fixated on let's move to the best city in America, and then I thought about it and I was like, well, isn't Virginia Beach the best city to live in America? That's what it was called.
Those two words don't go together.
No, well, and that's the thing, that it's not linear. It's not the bigger the city, the better. It's every city has a totally distinct character. Boston... I always just thought if we move to a city, there'll be 24-hour stuff everywhere because more people live there. Not the case. There's less 24-hour shit in Boston than there is in Virginia Beach and Norfolk. Because there's not as much interstate cutting through it.
All the public transit shuts off at 2 in the morning, so if you're
not
going
even that. It doesn't even go that late. It's like 12.
Is it?
Shuts off at midnight. That's why we don't go out to bar crawl.
Yeah.
No, it all shuts off at like 12, I think.
I think it might depend on the line, but I think you're right. I think the red line does close pretty early.
It's pretty fucking early. It's early enough that you would... Because, like, I thought for sure we'd go out to bars and then take the train home, but it closes early enough that it's pointless. So, yeah, like, as soon as we had the thought of Virginia Beach, suddenly I'm like, I have a complete map of Virginia Beach inside my brain. I could literally picture any spot in the city. Any spot. I could tell you what's there. I could tell you what's good about it. And I was like, well, fuck. Half my problems were that we lived so far away, but if we lived here, or here, or here, it would be amazing to live in Virginia Beach.
And guess what? There's houses in all those places
Turns
you're
out,
pointing.
there's houses that are in the price range we're looking for at all those places. So this was like a huge revelation, huge weight off of our shoulders. We don't have to fly to Austin. We don't have to fly to Tulsa. We don't have to make a guess in the... 4 days that we're there on whether this will be good to live, which is what we already did coming to Boston, and it didn't work out because it turned out like it wasn't... Like, we've done more research on these places, so it wouldn't have been as ridiculous. Like, we knew that there was affordable housing in the form that we wanted in the heart of the city.
I mean, there were some places in Boston, but, like...
They're
really
like
far. It's really hard to go to visit places in Boston because it's like, well, it's gonna be 2 hours in traffic to get to the north side. Is it worth it? No, it's not. We're tired. Let's go home.
So we figure out that Virginia Beach is the answer. We were already going to LA because my parents said they wanted us to come down just to see my granddad. It was originally supposed to be for the holidays. Things got mixed up. Whatever. We ended up there in March. Had a great time. Very emphatically, we're like, yeah, we're not moving out of here. Like, we're going to Virginia Beach. So, like, again, basically from November onward, there has been no feeling of connection to this place at all. It's been like, we haven't really gone into the city much, because every time we do, it's a huge pain in the ass. And the only times we do is when our friends want to do something, and they all want to just fucking play Pokemon Go and talk about Endless War. So it's...
I go to Fire and Ice.
I go to Fire and Ice again. So, like, yeah, I don't really like going into the city or hanging out with any of my stupid friends. Except for Zen Huxtable, who I do acid with, and that's fine. I'm gonna miss Zen. That's the number one thing I'm gonna miss about Boston, is hanging out with Zen Huxtable and doing acid.
I'm gonna miss all you fuckers.
Yeah, I mean, well, because, like, Munchie travels all the time. He can be there if needed.
I'm gonna miss Mike Toole.
If Nate and Tom end up coming down to Virginia Beach, maybe Ben will too. I don't know. I don't know what guy. Although Ben hated it in Virginia Beach when he was there because there's no public transit and he doesn't want to have a car. But I don't know what'll happen. I don't know if anybody will come down with us. I don't care. Like, if they want to, they can. Like, I continually had put my eggs in the PCPHQ basket because I thought there was no reason it couldn't happen. I was like, there's no reason me and Nate, once he leaves his job, can't live in the same place and establish something. And my mentality was always, if we build it, the rest will come. If we have something that's successful, that we build up, and other people want to be involved, they will find a way to get involved. So if that happens, that'll be great. If it doesn't happen, I'll just keep doing my own thing. But I'm not going to put myself in a position I don't want to be in to make that happen, you know?
Hell no.
So, like...
It's foolish.
So we're going back to Virginia Beach. And, yeah, like, again, like, I've just been... It's always been me working on something, because I tried so hard to make I Am Games work, and that was a significant amount of the time we were here, is me, like, trying to find... I would say I spent most of the time trying to find a get-rich-quick scheme. Like, trying to figure out, what do I need to do on my main channel to make people care? What do I need to do to I Am Games to make people care? what can I do here and there, and because I'm just being spread thin through all these things while still trying to maintain living in this fucking house, none of it really worked the way I expected it to. The only thing that finally worked was this new Patreon reward system and doing the fucking rant hole, which put a shitload of money in my pocket. Like, I don't want to do it forever, but it's the perfect stopgap for making this move happen. And, like, I basically haven't moved forward creatively at all. It's all just been, how do I make it so I'm not trapped? How do I make it so we can move out of here smoothly, get my taxes paid as fast as possible, have money in the bank again, and then the creativity can come. So it's all just been like stopgap measures, and a lot of them didn't work. Like, I Am Games didn't really pay out, so it was a lot of effort towards something that was meant to be a monetary venture and didn't materialize as a monetary venture. All because of my own weird ways of going about it, because at no point have I ever been willing to just do a job. You know, like, I'm not willing to just do SEO and just fucking make the video that is expected. It's like, what if I can make money doing this thing that's also fun? You know? Like, I'm never willing to go all in one direction or the other. It's just too much of a jumbled mess. And sometimes it pays off and sometimes it doesn't. But it was always about finding a balance, trying to make money, and not want to kill myself, basically. But, like, at no point did this house transform
Harder
into...
said than done.
Yeah. At no point did this house transform into a home. At no point did it transform into a set. At no point
That's
did...
the saddest thing about it. It's just, like, all the potential, like, kind of went out the window when we decided that, like, this is a temporary place.
Yeah. As soon as the heating oil, it was immediately temporary because it was just so much money, and, like, we didn't... Again, when we moved here, it was under the anticipation that it might not be that affordable now. It's, like, barely affordable, but as I make more money, it'll become more affordable. And the exact opposite of that was the story. So
we
it was just...
don't need anything here that costs more.
No. And we can get a place... Like, the place that we're moving into is way nicer. Pretty much the same size.
Younger.
And, like, $900 a month cheaper.
Yeah.
So...
On a, you know, and it's in a safe neighborhood.
And it's in, like, a part of the city I am ecstatic to live in. Like, I couldn't be happier with the location. I couldn't be happier with the house itself. I couldn't be happier with the potential it has for doing things with it. So it's like...
realtor is...
It's literally a linear step up. It's just purely a step up. So, living in Boston, it just turned out... It was just shit. Like, we had... It's not like this was a miserable time, because we have each other,
Yeah.
we had fun where we could,
we learned a lot of
we
things.
did things, we learned a fuckload, you know, I made a lot of content that I'm proud of, I had a lot of fun making content, living with Tom was fun, you know, the only real drawback was the lack of relative privacy, because we have a guy living here, so we're not going to walk around naked and fuck in the middle of the house, but, like, other than that, Tom's, like, the best person to have as a live-in guy. He was very helpful with tech. He was very helpful with, you know, just running our shows together.
Keeping burglars out of our house.
Yeah, and he was never in the way. Like, we didn't really communicate that much outside of I Am Games.
It's like, you know, if you have a roommate, you could go, like, 3 days without talking to him.
Yeah.
And then you talk to him and it's like, what are you up to? It's like, same shit as always.
Right. And it was really unfortunate that he basically...
Same as it ever was.
...died because his back became herniated as fuck, and now he's, like, trapped in Massachusetts because he's stuck in their healthcare system.
He became 30.
Yeah. He became 30 a lot harder than I've ever seen it done before. But yeah, it just was like this constant nagging feeling of, when is this going to be over? When is this going to be over?
When is this nightmare over?
When is it going to be over?
When will it be warm enough where I don't have to wear 3 blankets around the house?
Yeah.
And 3 layers of
socks.
socks.
Like, instead of heating, because we never turned on the heat. Never once. We just bought a ceramic heater and moved it around the house. And electricity bills were still fucking high as shit, but it was less than it probably would have been to fill the fucking tank over.
I mean, if we were here all day, we would have to fill it more than 3 times.
Yeah. Right, because they weren't even...
They were like, oh, we aren't home all the time, so we would always turn off the heat, but you guys would probably have double it. It's like, you couldn't tell us that because you knew we worked from home.
Yeah.
You couldn't help us out at all. You just really wanted to fuck us over. You needed somebody to be in this house that bad.
So this was just the longest, like 6.5, well, probably longer than 6 months of wanting to be out of this place. Like 7 or 8 months of just constant, when are we going to be able to leave?
And
then we
you know,
finally...
I'm looking forward to being in the mind state of, oh, this is like, we're setting down our roots. Like, we can decorate.
Yes.
We can have a place that we can be proud of.
Because when we came here, we expected to be in this house for at least 2 years. That was what we had told them, and I know she's really disappointed that we're leaving so early.
Well,
but like,
if you treat your fucking tenant like
yeah.
shit, what do you expect?
Right. So, yeah, like, we expected to be here for a lot longer, but ultimately, the place we're moving into is way more of a like all the things we didn't realize about this place are why this is not a place we are staying in. You know, all the things about the new place that we checked because of this experience is why we think we're going to be there for probably longer than 2 years, because I love that place.
Yeah, until we're ready to buy a house, hopefully,
yeah.
Unless we decide we want to live somewhere else.
Yeah.
But, like, if Virginia Beach is the place where we want to settle down and...
I'm excited.
You know, I want to get a job there. If I can find a place that I want to work at seriously. Like,
yeah.
Let's buy a house when we can afford it, but, like, let's live at our means, maybe a little bit below our means, you know, build up some money, have a good time, make some memories.
And pay my fucking taxes.
Grill some fucking burgers on the patio.
Yeah.
Go to the beach.
The last thing that happened is that we found the place in Virginia Beach.
I don't even want to hear this part of the story.
I'm not going to tell the most recent 2 weeks review. If you should listen.
Also the millennial moving video.
Yeah, I talked about it a little there, but like, you should listen. You should pay $5 just to hear the latest 2 weeks review, because it's a rollicking story of the week we spent in Virginia Beach. But we found a place, and we told them we were moving in May 1st. And we used our current landlady as a reference. She was a good reference, apparently. She gave us the thumbs up. But then she tells us, oh, you're leaving May 1st? Well, I am going to be out of town from April 20th through May 28th. And I need to be there to do the final check when you leave. And I say, well, can you do the final check on like the 19th, and then we'll just leave the key here or leave it with the realtor? And she's like, well, when I do final check, you have to move out. And we're like, well,
when were you going to tell us this?
Yeah, when were you going to tell us you're going to be in China for 40 days?
Up on, you know,
our lease is up 2 days after she gets back. I don't know if she had penciled in this final check, but we've already signed the lease for the place we're moving into, which is move-in ready, and we've told them we'll be there May 1st, and they could easily find another tenant if we decided to push that back by a month.
For another month, yeah.
So I tell her, you better be able to come do this on the 19th, because you just cut our time down by 10 days. Where we were planning to...
You do understand that we gave you plenty of heads up to tell you that we were moving in May.
We said we were going to move in May. We said that as soon as we could.
What the fuck is this?
We already paid the rent for April and May, so you're not allowed to kick us out. But we will leave on the 19th because I don't want to deal with you ever again. But we're going to miss out on a trip to Rochester for Easter that we were going to take. We were going to take our sweet time packing for 20 days.
Your car ready
now
to
we have
turn
10
in.
days, and my car's got a flat tire, and if BMW won't take it tomorrow, then I'm gonna have to tow it on the back of a fucking U-Haul and drive for 14 fucking hours towing a car. So look forward to all that. We are almost done with our packing, and
still here for like another. Is it 2 more sleeps or 3 more sleeps?
We sleep tonight.
Today's only Tuesday, right?
3 more sleeps.
Okay, because I keep thinking it's Wednesday, but
Well, it is now.
It is Wednesday, but like.
So
Time's been moving at like a really weird pace. It's like too slow, but too fast.
It seems too slow until you go to bed and you wake up the next day and you see how much is still left.
Every hour is super valuable, but time's moving so slow. It's like finals week at college, where you're like, I have nothing to do for the next 2 days before my last final, but
Well, we just want it to be over. We want to be gone because it's a completely fresh start. It's like all of the things that have been troubling us are because of this fucking house. Like, in the time since, like, November, nothing is wrong with my life except that I live here, in Boston, in this house, with this landlady. And as soon as I don't live in Boston, and I don't live in this house, and I don't have this landlady, and I got money going consistently into the bank, and I pay off the taxes, there will be no more stress, and I will stop growing the rapid gray hairs that I'm growing. And I'll be able to do creative things. I have tons of ideas, and well, that's probably because I've been drinking so much goddamn Mountain Dew, but that's a result of the stress.
No, same. I've been fucking eating ice cream and touching my face. Being a fucking nasty person.
So look forward, because the next place we're going...
Reactivating my period.
The place that we're going is going to be called the Rainbow Ranch. And we're very excited about all the possibilities of the Rainbow Ranch. And just expect a lot of new things on the horizon, because I have a lot of ideas, and they're all very new. So, the times they are a-changin'.
Yeah, it's a time to look forward to the future.
Learn a lesson from us. Know what you're getting yourself into before you do things.
The grass is not greener on the other side.
No, the grass is not greener, it's just a different color. It's not even green. It's blue. You go over there and you gotta go, oh, the grass is blue? Well,
I don't know how to live in a world
where do I like
blue
blue grass or do I want it to be green again?
Yeah.
It's not greener. It's just a different color. And if you get there and you didn't research what color the grass was going to be before you got there, you're going to get there and you're going to go, what the fuck? Did I just sign up to live for a year surrounded by blue grass? I don't even listen to blue grass.
I'm allergic to blue grass.
Well, we're not going to beat that metaphor. That's all. Thank you for watching.